Hello, everyone, to our 2009 episode of Picture This, the show where we go through every Best Picture nominee in the history of Oscars ever, and we will continue doing the show until there are no more Oscars left, or there's no more me and Chad left. Speaking of, this is Chad Webb. Chad is my co-host. I would like to think that we will outlive the Oscars, but we'll see. Chad, how you doing? Well, welcome to 2009. It's been a while. We recorded our October episode in September, so it's been quite a while since we recorded. How you doing?
Yeah, that's fair. We probably won't outlive the Oscars, and now I'm having an existential moment right now. But no,
I'm so sorry.
I'm very, very excited about 2009. I think this is a really, really good year. There's so many films in this year that I really liked, and even I think some of the weaker ones I still enjoyed for the most part.
Nice.
And so yeah, I think this is a really good year, packed year. We're back to doing 10 movies.
Yeah, we're
which
back
is
to
a
10.
lot.
So if the discussions feel a little bit briefer, it's because of that. It's because we have 10 movies to cover, and we are only two human beings that can only spend so much time talking. Our record's 3 hours, and I don't think we're gonna hit it this episode. I mean, that was our 2021 episode. We hit 3 hours. But it was kind of like an encapsulation of not just 10 great movies, but like such a crazy Oscars with Will Smith and Chris Rock. And, so we had a lot more to unpack there. Whereas here, it's just like, 10 movies. And some of these movies, I feel like people don't really talk about as much either.
I was just going to say, as we've said, that episode was also pretty much the same length as Drive My Cars.
Right. So we'll see if we can get Avatar length on this one, or if it might be a little briefer. Either way, settle in, guys, because we got 10 movies to talk about. Those movies are the one I just mentioned, Avatar, The Blind Side, District 9, An Education, The Hurt Locker, Inglourious Basterds, Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire, A Serious Man, Up, and Up in the Air. Crazy that those two titles at the end just happen to come out the same year. But yeah, how the show works, we usually go through Oscars history, Oscars precursors, and we talk about the snubs that didn't make it. We talk about our best actor and actress from these 10 movies. We obviously talk about these 10 movies, rank these 10 movies. But before we get into any movies, we like to set the scene. We like to give you a taste, a flavor of what 2009 was all about. We were both lucky enough to be alive during this time. I was an 11-year-old. Chad, I can't do the math right. Were you 19? Is that correct?
19. Yep.
Oh, okay. So I did do the math.
19 correct. Going on 20.
Yeah. So let me know. We always like to do this when we've been around. What was your experience personally like in 2009?
Man, I actually didn't really think about this before.
Okay.
I was just out of high school, so I was in college around this time. I'm not sure if I still worked at Blockbuster, but I would have been just out of working at Blockbuster. I don't actually know if I saw any of these in theaters. I probably saw Up, but other than that, I wasn't really doing much. I was just trying to figure shit out, I guess.
Wait, so you were not part of the $3 billion that Avatar got?
Oh, I did. Yes, I'm sorry. I did see Avatar. Yes, of course I did.
Yeah, it's fine. A few people who are even co-hosts on this channel did not see Avatar in theaters, and one in particular is going to see it for the first time in prep for the new one, and that's why we're doing it.
Wow.
By the way, this month is because the new one's coming out right around the corner. But we wanted to save December for Christmas, so we're like, you know what? Let's do November for Avatar. Chad, let us know what was going on in the world though in 2009, just for any viewers that don't remember or weren't alive then.
Absolutely. I'll keep it brief. Here's some of the history. 2009 was designated as the year of astronomy. The first block of Bitcoin is established, whatever that means. An airplane crashes in the Hudson River and becomes known as Miracle on the Hudson.
Yep.
Barack Obama becomes the 44th president of the United States of America. The Icelandic government and banking system collapse. I'm gonna try here. Johanna Sigurðardóttir becomes Prime Minister of Iceland and becomes the world's first openly lesbian head of government.
That's cool.
Swine flu becomes a global pandemic. Paleontologists announced the discovery of Ardipithecus ramidus fossil skeleton, which is the oldest remains of a human ancestor found. And Call of Duty Modern Warfare was released.
There you go.
And on that.
Yeah. We'll actually talk about that because that has to do with one of the movies, just in terms of the culture of what was going on. Interesting to paint the picture. Yeah, I can't remember what I was up to when I was 11. This is a year removed from my like epiphany of like the movies with The Dark Knight. You know, that was like the introduction of like the movies for me. So yeah, like this was a year removed from that. I was still only in the like blockbuster area, like Avatar, Up. Like I saw those. I did think I saw The Blind Side, but still like just dipping my toe into like more adult or like more prestige movies. But that's what's cool about this year, and that kind of segues us into talking about the ceremony, is the fact that this was the first year since the 40s where they extended to 10 nominees. So Dark Knight was the reason everyone was like up in arms saying, you guys just have a bias against superhero movies. If there were 10 nominees, it would have been nominated, and so would have Wall-E. And then sure enough, the next year, we didn't get a superhero film in the slate, but we got genre films like Avatar, District 9. We even got an animated film, Up, which hadn't happened since 1991 with Beauty and the Beast. So this was definitely kind of a celebration of like, hey, we can now talk about more movies, which is cool. And we see that now is also still a staple to this day. It has been since. Not necessarily 10, it's been 5 to 10, but now we're back to 10 permanently now. So it's cool that this was like the trendsetter year, because this year does feel like it set a lot of trends just in modern movie making and just blockbusters in general and animation and all this stuff. And some great directors too. I mean, some of the people we consider the best modern filmmakers today are part of this slate as well, like Tarantino, Coen brothers, Catherine Bigelow. So it'll be interesting to talk about. But Chad, why don't we get to some of the movies that didn't make the cut? And you know, with 10 nominees, you'd think there'd be room for a lot more movies, but there's still some that end up on the cutting room floor. So, Chad, why don't you tell us? Actually, wait, we got to get to our births, deaths, and albums. I know.
I
can see the wheels in your head turning of like, wait, but Dylan, you forgot something. And as I was talking, I was like, what am I forgetting? Chad also, as always, tells us about famous people that were born, died, and made music in 2009. So, Chad, tell us, before we get into honorable mentions, let's get into some of the other music and births.
Absolutely, yeah. And don't worry, there's not a lot I got here, but for the births, Yaya Gosselin, Shaylee Mansfield, Julia Butters, who was in The Fabelmans.
Yes.
Halla Finley. Those are the births. Here's some deaths. James Whitmore, Jack Cardiff, Dom DeLuise, David Carradine, Farrah Fawcett, Michael Jackson, John Hughes, Patrick Swayze, and Brittany Murphy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a pretty sad year. I remember very few moments I remember from my 11-year-old like brain, but I distinctly remember where I was, what food I was eating when the Michael Jackson announcement happened. It was my 5th grade graduation. So now I can picture it. I'm going from elementary to middle school is 2009 for me. Now I can finally clicked. But yeah, I was celebrating graduation at a nice fancy steakhouse dinner, and I just remember one TV in the restaurant by the bar playing his death announcement, and I was like, whoa. It was like the first big celebrity death of my lifetime that I was like conscious enough to remember. So yeah, that was a big moment. I remember a big cultural moment. Actually, and obviously, in retrospect, you know, some people have other thoughts about him, obviously, but yeah, it was a big monumental moment for sure.
It definitely was. Yeah, like he had like a big like funeral and stuff like that. I think I was working at Blockbuster when I first heard.
Oh, nice.
So I was in 2009 still working there.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. One moment memory could kind of make you remember what you were up to. So yeah, you were at Blockbuster. I was a 5th grader. But were you smarter than a 5th grader, Chad? That is the question.
I don't know if I'm smarter than a 5th grader now. So
I'm definitely not.
Yeah. Well, here's some albums that came out that year. Some fantastic ones. We have Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix by Phoenix.
Ooh.
We have Hospice by The Antlers. Just trying to make sure if there was a "the" in there. And then by Animal Collective, we have Merriweather Post Pavilion, which fun story. I live not that far from the venue Merriweather Post Pavilion, after which the album was named.
Very cool.
That's all I have for the vinyl, but the rest I have XX by the XX, Vegetamest by Grizzly Bear, The Resistance by Muse, Lungs by Florence and the Machine, Humbug, not Bah Humbug, just Humbug by Arctic Monkeys, Bite Orca by Dirty Projectors, Man on the Moon's The End of Day by Kid Cudi, and Sigh No More by Mumford & Sons of Ted Lasso fame.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, births, deaths. It's pretty cool. Julia Butters in that name, and she's already been in a Best Picture nominee, and we'll see if she's in Fablements. But yeah. So
what was the other one?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She's a little girl who talks to Leo.
Right.
Which spoiler alert,
that little girl. Oh my god,
maybe my best actress for 2019. We'll have to rewatch the movies, but she's in contention.
Wow,
she's so good in that. Like
I can't wait to get to 2019.
So it's just crazy that even in 2009, so recent, that we've been getting names that are now all of a sudden like popping up in Best Picture movies. I'm like, wow, it makes me feel old. But let's talk about some of the movies, as I said, alluded to earlier, that didn't make the cut. The ones that, even with 10 nominees, they weren't able to squeeze in. And I noticed when looking at my list here, a lot of horror. And I think that's just always an Academy thing, but I have a lot of horror on my list. So I'm curious to see what you have, Chad. So Chad, why don't you tell us, what are some of your honorable mentions of movies that are notable or should have been nominated?
Oh yeah, here we go. I have a little bit of a long list, but we'll see. My Bloody Valentine 3D, Paul Blart Mall Cop. I saw that in theater.
I did too.
Underworld Rise of the Lycans, Taken, Friday the 13th, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Watchmen, Miss March, Sunshine Cleaning, I Love You Man, Monsters vs. Aliens, Adventureland, Fast and Furious, which I believe is the fourth one, Dragon Ball Evolution, Hannah Montana the movie, X-Men Origins Wolverine, Angels and Demons, The Brothers Bloom. I believe that is the only Rian Johnson film I haven't seen. Terminator Salvation, Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian, Drag Me to Hell, The Hangover, Food Inc., Moon, Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs, 500 Days of Summer, Funny People, Julia and Julia Ponyo, Big Fan, the Final Destination, Halloween 2, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, The Informant, Paranormal Activity, Zombieland, Whip It, Black Dynamite, Law Abiding Citizen, Where the Wild Things Are, Saw 6, A Christmas Carol, The Twilight Saga, New Moon, Brothers, Trick or Treat, Invictus, The Princess and the Frog, and Crazy Heart. For my best picture worthy, some of these might be a little bit of a stretch to some people, but we'll see.
I know there's one you haven't mentioned yet, so I'm curious.
Some have actually really grown on me, and Dylan might be surprised. Coraline, Star Trek, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Jennifer's Body.
That's it.
Right?
The last one probably should have won Best Picture, let's be honest. No, I don't know about that. But yeah, you named really a lot. Good. I mean, I just noticed, so much horror. I mean, Coraline, like you alluded to, has a horror edge. Drag Me to Hell, Jennifer's Body, Zombieland, Trick or Treat, like really good horror that year. And I understand why they didn't nominate him. But good year for animation too. Fantastic Mr. Fox, Princess and the Frog. Yeah, like you said, Harry Potter. My favorite, this is an underrated one that not many people have seen, but Sugar, which is my favorite sports movie of all time, Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck movie, directors of Captain Marvel. If you didn't like Captain Marvel, but you liked the stuff that wasn't very CGI, you will love Sugar because it's even better. And if you did like Captain Marvel, you'll also love Sugar. I do recommend it. And then the movie that, thank God I watched these movies for this episode, because now I can finally get the distinction between a serious man and a single man, because a single man also came out in the same year. It's a, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of the director, the guy who did Nocturnal Animals, the fashion designer, Tom something.
Savini.
Maybe I don't think so, but maybe Tom Ford, I think is his name. But yeah, Single Man, which actually got Colin Firth the Best Actor nomination, which is also tough because in that movie, Colin Firth wears glasses, and in a serious man. See, I'm confusing
Michael
it again.
Stuhlbarg
Michael
wears
Stuhlbarg
glasses.
wears glasses. Yeah, it is Tom Ford. Tom Ford, yeah, fashion designer, made this movie. It's a really good movie, but that was actually kind of considered one of like the big snubs of the night. And Crazy Heart, another one, because Jeff Bridges won Best Actor and it won Best Song. People were like, "Oh, it's going to get Best Picture nomination."
I never
especially
saw that one.
now that there are 10. I haven't either, but yeah, that was a very interesting list. And then one that not many people have seen outside of the inside the U.S., but it's more popular internationally. But a Christmas film called Nativity with a big exclamation point at the end. It is a favorite of our friend Stacey Morris's, and I checked it out last year, and it is utterly delightful. But yeah,
I need to check it out. I think it's on YouTube.
Film. Yeah, go check it out. Especially as a Christmas fiend, Chad, you should. But yeah, those are the films of 2009. Now transitioning into the ceremony itself. As I said, the big news story being the fact that there was an extension to 10 nominees, and the fact that so many, good, interesting genre pictures made it in. Avatar, District 9, Up. But the biggest news was the first ever woman to win Best Director, being Catherine Bigelow, and she not only won it, but she beat her ex-husband James Cameron, who had just made the highest-grossing film of all time, in what was considered to be,
Jim.
I would say maybe like 2 months before the Oscars, that would have been an upset. But then closer to the Oscars, it became a little clearer who would win, because I put together this big chart. And oh wait, we're in it. That's what happens when you get a skinny image. The image here, you can kind of see Avatar was the winner of the Globe for Best Drama. So then after it won the Globe for Best Drama, everyone thought, oh, Avatar is going to win. But then Hurt Locker ended up winning Critics' Choice, BAFTA, and PGA. So Hurt Locker, going into the night, it was kind of a done deal that it would win, because it won 3 out of the 4. And then Up, while it does have all those trophies, those are all for animated. So it won Best Picture, but it won Best Animated Picture. So the real favorite, though, of the night was a Hurt Locker. But look at this. I think this is the first time ever where a film did not get nominated for a single precursor and ended up in Best Picture, and that's The Blind Side. The Blind Side was not nominated for Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, PGA, or BAFTA, but somehow made it in. And District 9, only nominated for PGA, still gets in for Best Picture. So that's what I'm saying. Like the extension, and Serious Man 2, only nominated for Critics' Choice. So it's kind of cool that these movies are only not nominated for 1 or 2 precursors, but still get into Best Picture. I think that just goes to show how much excitement the Academy had to just nominate whatever they felt like, and not necessarily needing to go by what all the precursors were, because as we see, there are only a few movies that were actually nominated for all the precursors. Precious, Up in the Air, Up, Hurt Locker, and Avatar. But yeah, really interesting slate that I can't wait to get to. I don't think there's any other huge notable things to say about the actual ceremony, so let's get into it. Let's start with the big one. I mean, we're going to start with the highest grossing film of all time. I believe it has taken back the record. It teeters with Endgame. I don't know where it is now, but let's talk, Chad, about Avatar from 2009.
All right, Avatar, directed by James Cameron, written by James Cameron, cinematography by Mauro Fiore, music by James Horner, starring Sam Worthington, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang, Michelle Rodriguez, Giovanni Ribisi, Joel David Moore, Dilip Rao, and Zoe Saldana. Synopsis: humans attempt to colonize an alien moon as one of the humans joins the alien race.
Yes. So obviously, it goes without saying, it was a smash hit. And the sequel's coming up, so I feel like it's now kind of back in the buzz. There was a little period of time though where Avatar wasn't in the buzz, which was very interesting, to where like it started off when it came out, it was a big hit, but then the years went on and people were like, oh, it's overrated. But then because it was so overrated, now it feels like the past year or so, now people are saying it's underrated, because now everyone who was overrating it, now the underrated people are kind of making their voices heard. So Avatar's kind of had an interesting journey, especially also with Endgame passing it. There was conversation there. So I feel like we've kind of been, enough time has passed where we've seen Avatar as a great movie, as an overrated movie, as an underrated movie, as an awful movie, all the in-betweens. We've heard every voice and every opinion. So I'm excited to hear yours, Chad, because I know we have spoken a lot about this movie just over the years, and it's interesting now rewatching it for this episode. And I believe we both rewatched it in theaters as well recently with the re-release. But Chad, tell me your thoughts on Avatar, maybe when you first saw it and when you've thought about it since, and now this most recent watch. Like, what's your journey been with the Na'vi?
Yeah. Well, because of the Na'vi, because of the blue people, I had to wear my blue duck shirt from Billy Madison.
That's
so
why.
there you go.
I love
I
the
had
theme.
we had tried to record this at one point, and I had a Pulp Fiction shirt I was wearing in honor of Bastards, but it got dirty.
I'm glad you went with a Tarantino shirt in honor of Bastards and not a Holocaust shirt. I think that would have been problematic. So I'm glad you went the
Yeah,
the director route
I
there.
don't have
Um,
too many Holocaust shirts,
yeah,
thankfully.
I'm very
But
glad you don't. I don't think anyone
anyways,
does. And if you're watching and you do, get some help.
all right. So yeah, Avatar. I mean, it's one of those things where the success of it is undeniable. The cultural like impact or like technical impact on cinema is undeniable. Um, no, I didn't know anybody who was like denouncing, how amazing it looked when it
Right.
came out. It was revolutionary. It was just
Yeah.
one of those movies like, have you seen Avatar in the theater in like 3D? This is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
and I was,
I hate to bring the Scorsese theme park thing into it, but like it's almost like when a new roller coaster comes out, it's like, did you ride it yet? It's
yeah,
kind of that's kind of what Avatar felt like. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I remember seeing it, really, really liking it. I didn't have as like, critical of a mind about movies as I do now then.
Mm.
Even at 19, I was just like, oh yeah, it's a fun movie. I really liked it. And then I remember hearing some opinions after, like, I had a philosophy teacher who was like, it's like Dances with Wolves, or all these other movies that are like, you know white man goes to be a part of this tribe that he doesn't really belong in, but then he ends up assimilating in it and stuff like that. So I think a lot of those like comparisons are really real. A lot of people
Mhm.
have them and they make sense. However, Avatar was still able to come out, be its own thing, be unique still, even though, it does in some ways feel a little derivative. It's still like, it's almost like a Tolkien level like world that James is trying to build
Mhm.
here. And we've only gotten a little bit of that. I feel like the original Avatar had to spend a lot of time building this world, and if it didn't look as beautiful as it does, then I don't think it would have worked as well as it did.
Yeah.
And now that we're getting the second one, and James is like, well, this one's going to be more about family and emotion and just all this stuff. So, and also building the world a little bit more, but, we don't have to spend as much time, well, this is how this works. This is how that works anymore. So I think maybe they can go even further. And I remember when James Cameron was like, well, I'm not going to do any more like other kind of original stuff that's different. I'm going to keep on this Avatar train.
Mm.
I remember myself and a lot of people were like, why? Like, why can't you just go do other stuff?
Mhm.
Like, you do a lot of like really cool, unique stuff that's different. And maybe like promise us one more, but like five more or whatever he's
Yeah.
doing. It's like, what
Uh,
is this? So
well, also, I don't know if he intended it for it to be such a long process either. I mean, obviously, from
yeah,
Titanic to Avatar, that was such a long time to make those movies. That was, I think, 11 years
yeah,
between, or 12 years between Titanic and Avatar. So it's like, I think Avatar 2, he was like, oh, I'm going to make all these sequels, going to make all these sequels. But then once he realized that what he wanted, the technology just didn't exist yet, and he needed to
uh,
get the funding to then make all the technology and stuff. I think that's why it's taken so long. Because I do hope, I agree. I hope he goes back to some more other stories because he's been great. I mean, he made arguably the two greatest sequels ever made with T2 and Aliens.
yeah,
Which I mean, that's a good track record. Then I'm excited for Avatar 2 because every sequel he's done, he's knocked out of the park. But it's like it's really interesting to see how much time he put into this movie and how much time seemingly he's put into these other movies to where it's become his whole life. Like his whole life has been Avatar, and he really
yeah.
hasn't been able to stray from it because it is such a high demand. And that's kind of like the craft you at times admire from a filmmaker, but also you kind of go, dude, like take a breath, take a relax, take a chill
Like,
pill. But at the same time, it's like, but that's his passion, that's his dream. So it's like I don't really fault him for it, but
it's
at the same
almost
time,
like,
I couldn't.
because I know he didn't need to make anything else because he's just rich dude now. I mean, he
True,
a
that's another
movie he
point. Yeah.
made, made $2 billion, and
Mm.
whatever. He just doesn't need money. But it's almost also just like, well, if you were waiting for the technology, why didn't you make another movie or something like
Yeah,
that down
like,
the
it would be really interesting now to see, like, him do something kinda like what the Wachowskis did with their first film, Bound, like, something that's just in 2 or 3 locations, like,
Yeah,
very indie, get some, like, up and coming actors and, like, just do, like, set in one location type film, like, I'd love to see him go back to that now. I don't think he ever would,
yeah.
but that'd be
Well,
interesting, but
the other
yeah.
thing too about James Cameron though is his trajectory is almost kind of like Terrence Malick, where he'll
Mm.
do like a movie and then like 20 years later
Yeah,
come out
right?
with another
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and sometimes that works for a director, and you can definitely tell. Like, I totally get your argument and other people's arguments about it. Like, the story's a little generic, but I think we also have to think, like, when you're bringing so much new
Ooh.
technology to the table, like, that is, I mean, I think about this. Like, if you were to read all these 10 scripts, this is not going to be the one that's going to stand out the most to you. But I think, like, it's more than just the story sometimes. Like, sometimes it is the visual, sometimes it is the experience, the world building, like you said, the immersion, the passion. And I think Roger Ebert always said it best, like, he doesn't care what the movie is, it's how the movie makes you feel. And I think sometimes, like, a good story is what makes you feel certain things. But in this case, it's like it doesn't need a great story because the ambiance and the world building alone can still make you feel things. Like, the music also, James Horner, the late great James Horner, like, the music, the way it swells, that theme that comes into it. I mean, just the different creatures and animals and life and just the love of nature. I know it's like kind of like, oh, this white guy's stepping into these shoes, but it's also like, yes, he's a white guy, but he's also a minority in the sense that he is, has a disability. I think that's a big thing too. And I remember when I first watched this, this guy finally being able to run, finally being able to walk. Like, there's kind of an emotional catharsis in that too. So I think the story is basic, yes, but it's not. It's still a good story. I think. Like, I'm still
Yeah,
intrigued when
yeah.
I watch it. I'm still engaged. It's still entertaining. It's not like I'm just watching a pretty slideshow. Like, it does have some heft to it. It's just, some people say, "Oh, it's just Pocahontas." I'm like, but does Pocahontas have dragons and robots and people jumping with spears and stuff? Because it's true. Like, that's what I think elevates it for me. Where, yeah, it's style over substance, but just because the style is more than the substance doesn't mean there isn't substance. And I
Do
get, like,
agree.
people want to see more of, like, just more originality in the story, but again, like, I think it just depends on also the viewing experience, like, where you are and how you're seeing it. Because I do also see the argument that at home it's not as impactful as it is in a theater. I disagree only because at home I'm still engulfed in it and all, but I understand our argument. So, like, um, yeah, I just think it's such an interesting oddity because it's like one of those things where it's like it's like you have to judge it in the time and place where it was made, how it was intended. But yeah, but you should be able to argue it or analyze it on its own at home too. And that's what makes it so complicated too, and why I think the criticisms are valid. Because it does change every time you watch it depending on the format. But did you find
Mhm.
yourself liking it more? Obviously, probably yes. The answer is yes. In a theater, like, were you able to kind of like immerse yourself a little bit more having seen it now in this re-release with, like, 3D? Did you see it in 3D as well?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah, so it's just kind of been a roller coaster for me. Like, I know for you it's been mostly like high sailing for Avatar, just I love
Yeah.
Avatar. For me it's more of a roller coaster where super high when it first came out, and then like me trying to be all critical about movies and hearing a lot of people compare it to these other, because I've never seen Dances with Wolves, but I've
Hmm.
seen movies that are kind of similar to what Avatar is trying to do. So I get what they're talking about. I get the
Yeah.
criticism, and I get the criticism about that it kind of doesn't look as great. Like, I mean, if you have a good setup at home, maybe it'll still look pretty good. But, I think it does suffer a little bit when it's not in like what he intended to be, this, big IMAX, whatever experience. That being said, it still does have a good story. Like, yeah, I don't think that, it struggles to be its own thing.
Hmm.
I really, when the tree is falling and stuff like that, and their whole like civilization is just and world is being attacked. I still feel stuff. He succeeded in that. So it's not definitely not without substance. It has great
Hmm.
style. Um, and seeing it in the theater for the second time, yeah, I was more blown away again than watching it at home. And still, after seeing that, I'm still, after riding that high again, I'm still kind of like on a little bit of a downturn, but I think
Mhm.
it's higher than it was before. Like I've
Yeah.
been kind of low on this movie, not ever really saying Avatar's a bad movie. I've never said
Right.
that before,
Mhm.
but I've said like it's okay. It's Avatar. It doesn't really
Mhm.
hold up, is
Yeah.
what I would have said. Now I'm a little bit higher on it, but
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I could really quick. I have some notes I wrote while I was watching the movie.
Yeah. Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, so I wrote narration. This is bullshit. I'm going to kick his corporate butt. So some are quotes. Masturbation joke. I'm glad they had score and not soundtrack like Creedence Clearwater Revival during the helicopter flying. Being attacked was a cool way for Sully to part from his group. Sully has to rely on crafting his own tools and coexisting with nature. She said he has a strong heart, but how does she know? See, seeds from the sacred tree must have told her, is what I added later. No one can teach you to see. I guess she said that. The tribe calls Sully a dreamwalker. Sully shows willingness to learn, but everybody is an asshole to him, telling him he's stupid for not knowing things like Iwa. Yeah, they're the Navi are kind of assholes for a second, I think. Sully should really see all the signs that the military was planning to destroy the tree to get unobtainium, so he kind of betrayed the Navi. Sully and Sigourney grow closer, and she helps him with his legs. All energy is only borrowed, and one day you have to give it back. Forcing the pterodactyl to bond with you feels like sexual assault. Kind of does, doesn't it? A little bit.
Eh,
The score during the flight is. Don't think about it that way, Chad.
no.
The score, the score during the flight is incredible. So yeah, the score was incredible. Outsiders are forbidden from the tree. I wonder why. We learn they plan to relocate the Navi. A tree of voices where you can hear the ancestors. I've already chosen, but this woman must also choose me. Then they fuck. Complications with danger on the inside and being unaware on the outside. Stephen Lang and Giovanna Ribisi are pieces of shit. They take Grace to the tree in her human form. Sky people killed their mother, the earth. You think you're one of them? Time to wake up. Neytiri seeing Jake's human body was special. And I put the quote, I see you. The
Hmm.
shot of Jake waking up for the first time, totally in his true body, is special.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can cut out any of that if you want, but
Good
there's
bullet
a
points.
lot
No,
there.
I'm gonna leave it all in there, but it's good bullet points. Yeah, I think the one last thing I want to say about this is like I love the visuals, obviously, but the story, like the whole, I think there's some movies that feel white saviory, but I think this is almost the opposite, where like some people would like to say like, oh, it's just this white savior movie, but I disagree. I think if anything, they save him, and they kind of
I like
like
that.
I think a lot of it. When we think of white savory, we think like the white people are always making the people who are people of color, they're making them better, and we'll kind of talk about that in the next film we're going to talk about. But like this
Yeah.
film, it's more like he's learning this culture, and I think he's learning how great they are and how special of a culture it is, and they are the ones who are kind of you know making him better, and I like that angle better for those reasons, because it seems like more of the Navi story. And I think Neytiri, I like to consider her the main character. I know we're seeing things through his eyes, but like she is, I think, my favorite character. I'm the most drawn to her. Like I love her journey and her impact on the story. And I do like how at the end of the day, she is the one who gets like the final blow. Like he's the one who's kind of like, he gets hit out of his little casket thing, and she's the one who delivers the final arrow to hit the guy's chest. Like they let her have that cathartic moment, because at the end of the day, it's not the fact that he came in and helped this army. I think they would have gotten it either way. He gives them valuable information, that they, obviously helps them. But again, it's the Navi getting what they want out of it. They win. He helps them, but he is not leading them to a victory. He is merely another force to help them. Like it's not like he's saving them. And I think that's why it's a little bit better than some of the other films that it's compared to, because of that. And it brings up interesting stuff about colonialism. But I think you know movies like this, especially at the time they were made, this was a movie that everyone from the family went to see, and it's like I think it's okay to be a little heavy-handed in the messaging. The whole like save the wildlife, like this is precious land, you can't tear it down, and that's still stuff we could learn from today. I mean, like I went back to my hometown for Thanksgiving, and there's 3 beautiful like parks that are now being teared down for apartment buildings, and I'm like, oh, come on, like, and I think that's why movies like this exist. Like the messages are a little forced, a little heavy-handed, but I think they kind of have to be in sometimes, especially because James Cameron's a purely visionary, like visual person. Like the story does kind of come second, but you can tell even though the story does come second, like it's very clear what he's passionate about in the messaging he's trying to convey. So I'm definitely a big fan, but I'm glad to see you like came around to it and that you like it more. Yeah. Any last words on Avatar?
Yeah. I think the style is really, really great. The substance, when it's there, is really, really there. I'm very excited for the sequel because I think, like I said, he can take a lot of the things that worked in the first one and not have to do as much exposition, world building, and stuff like a little world building. I'm sure he's gonna show us underwater and a lot of things like that and different creatures and whatnot. But it's not like them teaching Sully now how to be in the world. Like he's been there. Has children now apparently. But yeah, also like a lot of those moments are really special. Like I did really love the part where when Neytiri has to like rescue his human body from that like shack RV or whatever the hell it was, and moments like that I just thought were really special when it's like it doesn't matter what you look like, love is just love.
Yeah.
And I loved a lot of stuff like that. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Avatar had a big nomination day. It was tied for the most nominations with 9, but it didn't win as many as people thought. It still won a third of the nominations. It wins Best Art Direction, which we now know as Production Design. Obviously, I mean, creating Pandora is no easy task. Best Cinematography, which again, lighting and framing Pandora is no easy task. And then Visual Effects, obviously, goes without saying. Also nominated for Best Picture, Best Director for James Cameron. Obviously, he loses to his ex-wife. Original Score, Sound Editing, Sound Mixing, and Film Editing. The common phrase said in this film is "I see you." You know who can't see? Blind people. Let's talk about The Blind Side. That was a bad segue.
He's gonna edit that out in post. Don't worry about it.
I want to keep it. Flaws and all. Sometimes they don't land. Let's see. Let me think of it another way. Okay, so when they're riding, when they have to when he has to get on the Ikron from above, he has to like kind of fly above with the Ikron in order to take over it because it's this big, large Ikron. So he has to kind of like stay in the peripherals. He has to stay in the blind side before he can jump onto the Ikron and bond with it. There we go. Let's talk about The Blind Side.
The Blind Side, directed by John Lee Hancock.
I have a third segue. Speaking of white savior, sorry, go ahead, keep going.
Written by John Lee Hancock. Cinematography by Alar Cavillo. Music by Carter Burwell. Starring Sandy B, Sandra Bullock, Tim McGraw, Quentin Aaron, Kathy Bates, Jay Head, and Lily Collins. Synopsis. A boy coming from an impoverished area is adopted by a wealthy family and strives to become a football player.
Yes, and based obviously on a true story, Michael Orr.
Yes.
I remember this movie came out either a year or 2 before the Ravens won the Super Bowl, and I remember Michael Orr was on that Ravens team that won. So that was pretty cool. Chad, have you seen this one? Oh, yeah, obviously, yeah, you're close to Baltimore, so you know. Yeah, but
I was there, surrounded by a lot of happy Ravens fans. I'm not a Ravens fan, yeah, I did see this. I think when it came out, I remembered some of it, and then I rewatched it.
Right. I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but if we're talking white savior, if people have problems with Avatar, I think they're much more glaring in this film. And that's not to say this film is completely bad. I particularly don't really care for it, but when I first watched it, I did like it. I think because sports movies just have a tendency, even when they're most cliched, to still get you because it's like they hit on those emotional, sentimental beats and stuff. But I definitely think growing as a person, I can kind of point out a little bit more of the flaws of this film. It's a white family takes in this black kid from the streets, and that's true story. So there's really no way to hide around that. It's always going to be
Mhm.
white savior. It's kind of like The Help and Green Book, where like no matter how you tell the story or who tells it, like there's always going to be an element of white saviorism there because of just what the story is. But then I think it's the extra mile of how you go about telling that story. And I think in
Yeah.
this case, it's very white perspective. It's very
Oh
much
yeah.
from the family's perspective. I think the fact that Michael himself, and this is not to, denigrate Quentin Aaron's performance, but it's like, he doesn't have much of a personality. And I think that hurts it too. Like, he doesn't have a lot of layers to him as a character. We're getting very little of his point of view, and when we do, it's very just kind of quiet, mumble, smile and nod type thing.
Mhm.
And he does kind of come out of his shell a little bit more as it goes on, but we never really get his perspective. And all the other black people we see in the film are shown to be the most despicable people you've ever seen. Like the most, like, everyone's either drugged out or or mean or profane or just careless or violent or criminals. And I think that does some harm too, because like if you are, and this should not be your first time doing so, but if you are using this film to like learn about race, like this is not the best example, because
Mhm.
the Michael is the only black person in this film who's portrayed in any sort of positive light, and he's portrayed in a light where it's like he needs fixing, he needs to be helped, he needs to be given a better home, which is true. He needed a better home, but it's like when every other black character in the film is shown to be like the absolute stereotype worst person ever, like that makes it really hard to like kind of see this as a very honest portrayal of race relations. But again, Sandra Bullock, she's great in it, and you can't really take that away. But Chad, what are your perspectives on this film? I know I've gone on a little bit about my negatives for it, but
Yeah.
I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, because there are negatives. It's
Hmm.
not a perfect movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's right there, kind of in the middle. It is kind of like you brought up The Help and Green Book. They're definitely movies that have things in them that could have been better. Could have like shown, like you said, race relations a little bit better, and maybe coming from a perspective of like people who have experienced racism and actually like know like what it's like to feel that, because I'm sure the people who wrote this didn't. I mean, it's just like there's certain parts where you feel like the judgment, or you feel like the people patting themselves on the back a little bit, like when the daughter of the family is like sitting at a table with her friends, and then she, oh, so brave, she gets up and she goes and sits next to Michael, and it's like, I can't believe she just did that. She's so brave.
Yeah,
And it's just
yeah.
like, it's just one of those things where it's like you can see all the beats and you can go, okay, all right, I get it. But it's not that you can't watch this and still enjoy it. I still enjoyed like a lot of it. Um, but it's definitely, yeah, one of the weaker of the ones, and I would not have probably gave this a best picture nomination when
Hmm.
there's a lot other movies they could have.
Jennifer's
um
Body.
yeah, but I don't think it's but I don't think it's, yeah, that, because that actually has a lot to say about sexism and feminism and stuff like that, but
Hmm.
in a good way. But yeah, it's, yeah, so I'm on the it's fine thing. Like, I can watch it, it's watchable, it's something I can watch and enjoy. The little kid in the movie,
J Head.
um J-Head, um I love him, but also in the movie, I'm like, it's a little bit of problematic stuff. The reason I love him is because he is also a football loving little kid in Friday Night Lights, and that's one of my
Mm,
favorite shows of all time. He loves Mr. Tim Riggins, and in this one, he is Michael Orr's like adoptive brother.
mhm.
Um, and I like I like the connection that they make. I think it's very sweet. But I also
Yeah.
think it's weird because Michael Orr's biggest problem with the film was that apparently because they portray him as not like really knowing much about
Yeah.
football
Hmm.
until he gets taught football. He's
Yeah.
like, no, I've been studying football like
Right.
for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's
So,
like there's an extent where you can bend a true story to make it more cinematic, but I don't think
mhm.
having Sandra Bullock coming up and being like, this is your family and you've got to save him and you got to take care of him. You got to protect him. And that's how you play football.
Get
And then he ends up
get
being,
that twang in
then he
there.
ends up being the best football player ever. Like that to me is like, that's not just changing the true story. That's like totally far-fetched. Like I
Yeah.
get it. Like she does give a good performance, but like I've seen her give
Yeah.
even better ones. You know, like I think she
Oh,
does a
yeah.
good job in bringing a humanity to this character where it could have just been a Karen. And we see there's a scene with the Karens where she's sitting at brunch and they're like judging her. And I like those scenes. I think actually those scenes are probably the best in showing the racism and why it's bad. And I honestly think they do a good job in portraying that family in a positive light. But it's just everything else in the film that kind of is given a little bit, you know, the short end of the stick. As a college football fan, it was kind of cool because they used the real coaches for this movie, like Nick Saban,
Oh, yeah.
you know, all those coaches. Like it was fun to see, and that for me is always why I'm excited to watch it. Like I like the second half of this movie a lot more than the first because the second half is more about the football, and the first is more about the, you know, you're a troubled kid, we got you, you know, and it's just so interesting because a lot of films have tried to do a similar thing where you got like this white perspective and the black perspective, but it always seems like they just use they use more care in handling the story. Something like Half Nelson, I think of, you know, when I think of movies like that. And even Green Book and The Help, which are not the best, they still have like their black characters still have an agency about them. Like Mahershala Ali's character in Green Book feels like a character who has like actual, you know, intentions and emotions and, you know, actually has a personality. The Help, like Viola Davis and Octavia Spencer's characters, like they really do bring a lot to those roles. And I feel like in this sense, like, again, I'm not blaming Quentin Aaron, but it just feels like his character's so underwritten and kind of bland that it like doesn't help at all. Cause it kind of makes it feel like he's just this kind of puppet or prop that the family is using to kind of make themselves feel better. You know, it elements of it feel a little dirty, but again, like it's got those feel good sports moments that kind of get you at times, and I can see why the Academy bit at it at times. Yeah, I do agree. I wouldn't have put it amongst my 10, but you know.
Yeah, and you kind of on this weird like Bowden and Fleck thing where you keep bringing them up a lot.
You know what? Maybe I'm just that. And Sugar is another great example of that. But
True.
Less so about the white black thing, just more about a black person's experiences in America. You know, without you know it with less money and all that. But maybe Bowden and Fleck's Blindside. I would love to see that. We'll see.
Yeah, it definitely could have been. Yeah, that would have been interesting. It definitely could have been a lot better. I actually didn't hate Quentin Aaron's performance, but I also agree, like with what you're saying about like the writing of the character and stuff like that. Especially because I don't know anything about like Michael Orr and his personality in real life, but like you know, I'm sure he's probably different than that. You know, so but how did you also feel about the whole thing about how they were trying to get him to go with the school that they went to and they give money to and stuff like that? I thought that kind of added a little bit of an interesting dynamic.
Like I said, like the second half I think is a lot better because like that's kind of where we get a little bit more of the flaws of this family. The fact that like they're so against him going to Tennessee because like and I'll be honest, coming from a SEC college football family, like my dad was born and raised in Gainesville, Florida, right by the University of Florida. That's where my pop-up taught. What am I doing? My cousin is at Alabama now. Like there's a lot of SEC schools, they're rivalries. You know, like it's like the Yankees and the Red Sox. You know, it's like you just don't want your kid to be on that team, and I get it, but it's also like you already kind of dictated a lot of this kid's life. Like it's the one choice he has to make, and you're kind of overriding that. I did like that as a sense of conflict, and I like that added element of like her finally being like, I will let you go to the school. I will not wear the colors, but like I'll let you go there if that's what you want.
There's a little bit of growth there, and I
thought
that was
I like
nice.
that element. I do agree. That's a good storyline. Yeah, just because like those SEC rivalries are rooted. Yeah, I remember when I was looking at musical theater schools, I thought about Florida State, and my family was like, yeah, because they're a Florida family, Florida and Florida State, and a lot of my most admired people I look up to in film criticism went to Florida State. John Roca, Dan Merle, Kristen Harloff. So it's like Florida State's a big schmodown staple school. But my family probably they would have approved, but they would have been a little less enthused, let me say. But then I ended up at some small school that doesn't have any sports anyway, so it's okay. But yeah, I just think it's interesting. The highs and lows, I think the lows definitely outweigh the highs in this case. But like you said, like there are merits and glimpses of good things. Kathy Bates' character, it's interesting. I think they try to give it just like that extra perspective of, look, like we're not just like for progressives, like we got a liberal character in this too. But then the line of like, who would have thought we'd have a black son before we'd meet a Democrat? I'm like, that's probably the worst line
Yeah.
ever written for a movie ever.
Yeah.
Like that's like really bad. I cringed, but Kathy Bates is
Same.
great. Like she's a good performer, but
Always
yeah,
great.
no, not the finest line of dialogue for sure. And the Academy agreed because they only nominated it for 2 Oscars. It won one of them, so it batted 50 or 500 at the Oscars. It won for Best Actress for Sandra Bullock, and it was nominated for Best Picture. So it only took 2 nominations, won one of the 2. A very small showing for The Blind Side. It was a blind showing, if you will, but it was there. It was in the 10. It wasn't 9 nominees. It wasn't a district of 9. I don't know. Anyway, Chad, tell us about District 9.
Sure.
I gotta get better. I have 7 segues left, so I'll get a good one eventually.
District 9, directed by Neil Blomkamp, written by Neil Blomkamp and Terry Tatchell, cinematography by Trent Opalock, music by Clinton Shorter, starring Charlton Copley, Jason Cope, David James, Eugene Wanangwa Kumbanyiwa. Sorry. Kenneth Nkosi, William Allen Young, and more. I tried my best with some of the names.
Yeah,
A synopsis. An alien species is confined in an internment camp in South Africa where a reporter becomes infected and starts to turn into an alien.
Yeah. I mean, first, without saying, no matter what our thoughts are right now, bravo for the Academy for recognizing something that I don't think in any year prior would ever even come close to getting nominated. I'm shocked that even in a 10-film slate, a movie like this that is filmed very cinema verite in the whole like documentary style, very science fiction heavy, guys turning into an alien. It's a social commentary on apartheid. Like it's made by South African filmmakers. It's a debut. No one knows the name of this director at the time. Like the fact that this movie was able to squeak in, let alone get 4 nominations, like, and Best Picture, like that's huge. Like, and I think that's the biggest success of having a 10-film slate is you get gems like this in there. And I don't know how you feel about this film. I'm not even the hugest fan of it, but like, bravo for the Academy for taking the 10 films and saying, we want to go in an interesting direction and pick some interesting choices. And I know they don't sit down and pick them all together, but you know, like just the collective majority making this a part of their slate, like that's kind of cool to see. And I wish more movies or more years currently would do that, because I feel like horror and sci-fi should always be in the mix. But what do you think of this one, Chad? Because I had not seen this before. I don't know if you had.
Well, first I'll say maybe this might be the closest that they'll ever get to nominating a documentary for Best Picture. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, this one is very interesting because ever since it came out, all I've heard was people just saying, you know, great film, one of the best ever made, you know, Neil Blomkamp, you know, check out his movies. Oh, he made Chappie. We don't like him anymore. You know, kind of stuff like that. But
I tried to watch Chappie on a plane, turned it off after 5 minutes. I was like, nope. I'm going to spend my time watching The Graduate, which was probably not appropriate to watch on a plane considering there were children behind me, but I didn't care. I was like, I'll watch this.
Great movie. Check out that episode of Picture This. Yeah. And so I tried watching this. I tried starting this movie so many times. I must have tried watching it 3 or 4 times. And just for some reason, I was just like, I'm not into this at all. I don't know what people are talking about. This is crazy. This is weird. You know, and then for this show, I was like, all right, I have to actually sit down and watch this, no matter if I like it or whatever. I mean, that's what we do on the show. And I watched it. And I liked it. I liked it more than I thought I was going to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not up and away. I love District 9. It's like one of the best movies ever. Nothing like that. So I don't know if I'm as high as a lot of other people might still be on this one. But I liked a lot of what it was doing, like the allegory for, you know, the apartheid, South Africa, just that whole thing. And, you know, just really like, you know, saying like when you alienate somebody so much they look like aliens. Like that's just this.
Yeah.
We're gonna literally do that.
It's such a great metaphor. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think honestly the stuff that loses me is that it is this really amazing like use of documentary style cinema verite, but then it kind of abandons it like halfway through. It just becomes like a normal regular old action sci-fi. Like the documentary stuff kind of ends maybe 75% of the way through, and I honestly was on board like fully like waving the banner like you said until that point where I was like, all right, now it's just kind of
Mm.
becoming a little bit more generic. But those first like 40 minutes when it's all kind of just hitting you with all this really interesting social commentary, like that stuff I really dug, because it's like science fiction has always been that to me, like a way of showing a social commentary or a social parallel or something. Like even Blade Runner discusses stuff like that, Arrival, like all these very heady concepts. Like it's very conceptually driven. It's not just guys and aliens with guns and shoot 'em ups and all that. Like it's not that. And then it becomes kind of that at the end. So I was like, oh man, it kind of lost me. But like in that first chunk, I was really into it. Like I think it's just such an interesting, unique way of conveying themes that like we've heard about for a while, but like in an interesting, unique way where like we're kind of just seeing a new lens on it. The idea of like you're alienated to the point where you become an alien yourself, and I like the performance of like that body horror and the kind of
Yeah.
transition into that. And I like the effects of it too. I think the documentary style is almost there to kind of mask some of the low budgetness of it, which I think is a smart choice. Like, hey, you don't have the great budget, then why not set it to make it look like a documentary? So where if you don't have to linger on these faces for too long, it's okay because the camera can cut away. It can be a little shakier. Like I think that's a smart device. And from what I've heard, he's never been able to top this. So it's like maybe I'll check out his films today. Maybe I won't. But I mean, if all his films were like this, I would definitely check them out because it's just so unique. It's a unique way of
Yeah.
storytelling for sure.
Yeah, and it's weird because like, in some way because of how the creatures look and stuff like that, you might think that it would be more comedic. But
Mm,
it's not that. Like it's very serious. It's a horror movie in some ways because of the body horror, like you said,
right.
which is why the wife really wanted to check it out.
Did she like it?
Um, yeah, she liked it.
Cool, cool.
And the guy, and the fact that they gave like one of the aliens like the name, it's like his kind of like slave name almost, like because that's what they used to do,
Yeah.
is give them like a white, I guess, name or whatever. And so that really there, when you find out like he has that name, you're like, oh, okay. And but like seeing this one guy who just like he's the documentarian, and then he doesn't really like care about the people that are there, and then he slowly starts to turn into one, so he's like forced to care, and kind of like fight for them, and like when they're making him like kill one
Mm-hmm.
of them, like I remember being like really like upset about it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it really did a good job of making you like feel for like these like fictitious alien
Yeah,
things, and like really like humanizing them.
for sure.
um and I think maybe because they took away they started to turn the documentarian into something else. Maybe that's why they took away the documentary style of it,
Oh,
but I don't
you're a
know.
genius. You're a genius, Chad. Yeah, no, that's probably a very valid point. It's one of those cases where like I totally see the intention now of why they did it, but it's also like that's the merit of it to me, to where I'm like I get it, but I'm also like, but I liked it better the other way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still really good though. Like it's an interesting sci-fi film. Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't put it quite on that tier of like it's the best thing ever. But especially given the Oscars every year, we're like, oh, that's Oscar bait. That's Oscar bait. That's
Yeah.
Oscar bait. This
Oh
is the
yeah.
furthest thing from it. So that's really cool.
And it's just kind of a nuanced movie, like
Hmm.
especially back then I could see people like riding the high of like District
Hmm.
9. I've never seen anything like that. And then like nowadays, I mean, we have like Arrival and things that are kind of similar to it. And I don't know, I can't think of any other like that are like
Right.
kind of similar to it
Yeah.
now. Well, I mean, now we've also have like The Shape of Water was like nominated, and
Hmm.
that's another pretty
Yeah.
very strange
Oh yeah.
one. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's a very good movie. Yeah, not one of my top tier, but like I expected to hate it. I expected to rank this last because I was trying. I was like, I can't get into this movie at
Mhm.
all. And
Yeah.
maybe it's just me. I don't know. But I
Yeah.
ended up
I
enjoying it. So
Yeah, I fully intended going into this. I was like, wouldn't it be fun if District 9 was number 9? But then I'm like, after ranking these films, I'm like, it's just better than that. Um, yeah, so District 9 is not nominated for 9 Oscars, unfortunately. It's only nominated for 4. It is nominated, doesn't win any, but it is nominated for Best Picture, Adapted Screenplay, Film Editing, and Visual Effects. So yeah, a real masterclass in documentary filmmaking. Maybe you don't have to go to college to get an education on documentary filmmaking. Maybe you can just
nice.
watch District 9. Tell us, Chad, about An Education.
An Education, directed by Lone Scherfig, written by Nick Hornby, cinematography by John DeBorman, music by Paul Englishby, starring Carey Mulligan, Peter Sarsgaard, Dominic Cooper, Rosamund Pike, Alfred Molina, uh, Kara Seymour, Emma Thompson, Olivia Williams, and Sally Hawkins. Speaking of The Shape of Water, Sally Hawkins. A synopsis: a schoolgirl is charmed by an older con man.
Mm. Yeah, I almost feel like I was disserviced by the synopsis because, like, when they meet, there's that element of like, oh, is this genuine? And then when you kind of like read the synopsis and it's like a con man, it's kind of like I knew from the start he wasn't. And Peter Sarsgaard does a good enough job from the beginning, not making him likable enough to where you're like torn up when you find out he's like
Mhm.
really a shitbag. But um, very interesting because like I feel like nowadays we're so caught up in like the licorice pizza or red rocket debate of like
Mhm.
the age gap and stuff like that. But I think this film, just by knowing the synopsis and the fact that like Peter Sarsgaard doesn't really hide the fact that he's a little sleazy in this and that she's very naive, like I think this is one of those movies where it makes it very clear early on that they do not like condone it and they don't really try to like romanticize it. It's more of just like, no, like they are of an age gap, but that's to emphasize the point that she needs to learn that she can just be young and enjoy going to school and should still enjoy her studies because that's what she is passionate about. She actually likes studying. She wants to get into a good college, and he is a con man. He's not a good role model, not a good advocate for her. And I think they make that clear enough early on to where it doesn't get into that creepy territory of like, ugh, like why am I supposed to root for this? Because their relationship the whole time, at least in my eyes, maybe it was a synopsis in the back of my head. I always saw it as artificial. I always saw it as her liking him a lot more than he liked her. But I don't know if you had a different perspective, Chad. What did you think of this movie? What did you think of this relationship? What do you think of the actors? I mean, Karen Mulligan, obviously a favorite of the show.
Yeah. I didn't know anything about this movie going
Mm,
in. I just kind of knew mostly who was in it, just like the main two on the cover. And
right.
yeah, I liked it. I didn't love this one.
Yeah.
It's because I was like super high on like Licorice Pizza. It's
Yeah.
not.
It's not that. It's very different.
Yeah, it's a very different movie. I don't think this one is like one that many people talk about. Like, it doesn't really like stand whatever. I like some things in it. I really like Alfred Molina in it. I love how
Yeah.
he's kind of, just like this dad who just like he's just afraid to go out and do anything, and just like
Mhm.
once they kind of said, it's like, why can't we just sit here and just be here at
Right.
this? I don't want to go to that restaurant. It's too far away. And and then he gets challenged and stuff like that, and kind of changes his mind. And yeah, the relationship is a little bit different because like in Licorice Pizza, it's not like they're like meeting each other's parents and stuff really.
Mhm.
But with this, like, she introduces him to her parents, and then her dad actually likes him.
Yeah, it's an
They're
actual committed relationship. It doesn't get to
yeah.
it's not the licorice pizza thing of this guy always pining after this girl and she kind of likes the attention, but she's still not willing to fully commit to him. And it's almost kind of seen through his own fantastical lens. It's more of like, no, this actually becomes a full relationship. And I don't know if it's necessarily legal. I don't know the British laws of consent and all
And it
that,
was
but
like back in the day too.
right.
So
Yeah. And they do wait till she turns a certain age to actually sleep together. So at least that's kind of like better, I guess, than the
and
alternate, but
And some of the moments, like when they're like in bed talking and they're having like naughty conversations, it gets a little cringe at times. I
yeah,
was
a
like,
little bit,
the
yeah,
fuck
because
is
it's this
going
young
on?
girl, yeah. And we think of Carey Mulligan obviously as this grown, mature actress, but we got to think like
Mhm.
this is 13 years ago. So it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, she's a girl in this. She's not a woman. She's a girl.
Yeah. And it was cool to like, see her, get out of her shit shell, and like, because she is the kind of like good girl who wants to go to college, and is just a really does really good with her school,
Yeah,
and
not just
does
college, Oxford, which is like,
exactly, like she has high hopes, her dad has high hopes for her, but then she tries to go out and explore, like, the world maybe a little too soon. And I guess I liked like some of that stuff. But yeah, I don't really think I really cared that much about the relationship. I remember like at the very beginning, because I didn't realize that it was going to be this kind of movie until a little bit
mhm.
later. But like the wife immediately, as soon as like I can't forget the line, but he said something to her parents, and she said, "Well, he's a creep because of that." Like whatever he said, I was like, "Oh, okay, really?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's interesting because like I feel like I've just seen this story so many times. Like this girl's in a relationship with a guy, maybe not that age gap, but like relationship
yeah,
with this guy gets really close. He's a little sketchy, and then he does something that's like, oh, like you're kind of skeezy, or
yeah,
whatever. And then she finds out he's married, and then it's like, oh, I should have known. The only difference here being that she is so young, so like it's kind of like not just oh man, that was a really learning experience, but like this is gonna shape my whole life. And I think that's kind of why this is called an education, not because she's going to college and she's such a studious student, but like she's actually learning education in how to be in relationships and what it means
hmm
to be young, and when to grow up and how to grow up and how fast or how not fast to grow up.
yeah,
And I like that aspect of it, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, it's kind of just generic, like it's not anything
yeah.
necessarily new and fresh. And maybe they liked it so much because it was like, it's well styled, and it's got good talent behind it.
Oh
Again, like
yeah,
the director isn't like a big name, so that's why I'm kind of surprised that this is of all the films snuck in there. Maybe it's also because it's British, so like the BAFTAs kind of gave it that boost that it needed, like kind of that attention. But I don't really know why this is the one that the Oscars bid at. I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I do like the education more than just books, and education about life, and just like also just like
Mhm.
just the interesting thing too about how kind of like quickly her dad is just like, oh well, you don't have to go to Oxford, I guess. And then she's like,
Yeah.
well, I thought that was like your whole dream. And like,
Right.
and she's like kind of disappointed that her dad isn't fighting hard to
Mhm.
not let her make so many mistakes, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And the
Yeah.
teacher too, Emma Thompson,
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I forgot
great
she was in that.
performance.
Yeah, it's got good performances. It's like a simple story, and I could see how like a young girl watching this could get a lot out of it. And like don't be too trusting in relationships. Like always put your life before like a relationship when you're that
Yeah.
young, because like that is good advice. Obviously, I mean like you have your whole life to explore love, but you only have so much time to actually like build your foundation of knowledge, and you know what that
Well,
means.
that yeah, and I also love how her character, she is so smart, because like when he tries to ask her to marry him and stuff, she's like so standoffish about it, like this is moving too fast, like I'm super young, and then yeah, when she challenges her dad, like, wait, what? You're not
Mhm.
gonna fight for me to go to college now?
Yeah.
Like, I like how she's still very smart about it. If they would have
Yeah.
just made her like really dumb the whole time or
Mhm.
whatever, then maybe it would have been lesser.
Yeah. And I do want to say one last thing. Like Carrie Mulligan, great for her age, but also like this is the breakout. This is why we have Promising Young Woman
Yeah,
and She Said and all these movies that she's starring in, like Mudbound. Like it's cool that she got her start here, and like this is the
Mudbound.
one that like put her on the map per se. Wildlife, another good one.
Oh
Education though
yes.
was put on the map with only 3 nominations, didn't win any either. Best Picture, Best Actress for Carrie Mulligan, and Best Adapted Screenplay. So it picked up a lot of good ones. One that picked up though 9 nominations and also tied Avatar for the most, you know, not unsurprisingly, is the one that won Best Picture, and that is The Hurt Locker. So, Chad, tell us about Catherine Bigelow, James Cameron's ex-girlfriend, aka the first woman to win Best Director's masterpiece, according to some, The Hurt Locker.
The Hurt Locker, directed by Catherine Bigelow, written by Mark Bowl, cinematography by Barry Aykroyd, music by Marco Beltrami or Beltrami to some people, and Buck Sanders, starring Jeremy Renner, Anthony Mackie, Brian Garrity, Guy Pearce, Christian Carnargo, David Morse, Ralph Ray Fiennes, and Evangeline Lilly. Synopsis: an Iraq War explosive ordnance disposal team does their jobs.
It does their jobs. Yeah, it's kind of just like a day in the life of a bomb suppressor. Um, Very interesting that like this is the one that takes down Avatar, only because this is so small scale in comparison. Like the stakes are obviously big. I mean, they're bombs. It's like in the middle of war, but it's like it's not your typical war film in the sense it's not Saving Private Ryan where it's a sweeping tale and there's this huge battle and it's much more internalized. It's much more about the psyche and the tensions and the day to day. But very interesting that like this is of all the films the one that takes down Avatar because it couldn't be any more different. But Chad, what are your thoughts on this? I'm assuming you had seen this before, as have I.
Yeah.
What do you think of this on a rewatch? Are you a fan of this? Do you believe it is her best? What do you think?
Yeah, I saw it when it first came out. It has a very like of the type of film it is. It's a very like kind of Zero Dark 30, just without all of the like political stuff.
Same
and
director,
like
so
fast pace and okay, there you go. That's right. But I remember seeing this and then I forgot everything about it except for Jeremy Renner's in it. And then seeing it again, I was like, I'm very interested to watch this one again because I remember it being very tense, having like a lot of really cool like sequences that are thrilling and just like very well directed. I mean, Best Picture, it beat a lot of really good movies, I thought. So yeah. And so I was just very excited to watch it again and I liked it. I don't know if I would have given this the Best Picture. But I liked how a lot of the sequences were very tense. And then I really liked Jeremy Renner's character being the kind of like gung-ho, I'm not going to do anything conventional. And like so much so that everybody starts to hate him. Yeah. And then they even like...
Even the audience a little bit to an extent. A little bit.
And they even at one point like go... Would anybody get mad if we just like killed him? Like, would anybody even know? Accidents happen all the time. You're like, what the fuck are they saying right now? This is insane.
It really questions the mortality, or the morality.
Morality, yeah.
Both.
And like what you could probably get away with in the heat of war. Like you just never really talk about it, I guess. Kind of like a Defy Bloods thing a little bit, like, where with the betrayal and all that stuff. But yeah, with this one, I really like Jeremy Renner's character because, when he comes in, I just like how he just does everything unconventional. Yes, it's very unsafe a lot of the times, but he also feels like he just knows what he's doing. He can like kind of like be one with the bomb or be one with the whatever they're doing.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of a recent movie. I can't forget the name. I think it made some money. Top Gun Maverick, where like this guy is like breaking. Well, not as much in this movie, in the sequel, but like breaking all the rules. He's a little bit of an outcast in the fact that he doesn't follow the rules. But again, he doesn't follow the rules because he knows what he's doing. He's really damn good at it, and he's a little annoying to everyone else around him. But everyone else also kind of like, but like he's good at what he does. And there's also that like underlying deep kind of like almost depression inside as well, like that kind of sadness. And I think that's what this film does best, is the out of war stuff where it's like dealing with the psyche and how that, the war affects that. And the war sequences themselves are so good as well, like, or the bomb sequences, like the tension, like you said, like all the meticulous planning of the sound design and the cinematography to build that tension. I think it's well edited. That's the thing, is like this film really does a good job in what it's doing. It's just what it's doing to me has never hit the same peaks that like other films in the slate do. Like it doesn't hit the necessarily highest emotional peaks. It's got emotion, but it's not, I don't know. I'm always underwhelmed by this one, and I don't know why. I think it's just because I'm going into it being like, all right, this is the one that beat Avatar. This is the one that beat... I'm not going to list the films.
Personal bias against it.
No, just because no, because a lot of these films feel like so big. Like Avatar is the highest grossing film of all time. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil where they are in my ranking, but like Inglourious Basterds is a Tarantino film. Up is the first animated film since Beauty and the Beast. Even like,
Yeah.
District 9, this really inventive like documentary type, a sci-fi thing. Like a lot of these films that I feel like people still talk about to this day. Whereas The Hurt Locker, I feel like people talk about it as like it's a great film, but it's not like one of those films that's begging to be like praised or
Yeah.
sequelized, or and obviously you wouldn't make a sequel of this, but also like you're not get this isn't in the common conversation, I feel like, of like the greatest films of the last century or
Yeah.
of this century. It just doesn't feel like that, and that's not to say it's not good. Like you said, like it's good for what it is, and it is so small scale, but I think it's almost too small scale to where I'm always itching my head like, like why is this the one that won? And I like it for the Catherine Bigelow storyline of like
Mhm.
getting to be the first woman to win. And I think her direction here is really good. Like I think it's well directed. It's just like
Yeah.
this film doesn't feel like a best picture to me, if that makes sense. And not in the like it doesn't feel Oscar bait, because I don't want it to be Oscar bait, but it also doesn't feel like it has that momentous status or like that oomph that a lot of the other films have. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm fine with it being a nominee, but like,
Yeah.
I also agree with you where I'm like, I don't know if this is the best one of the slate.
Hmm.
It's not my number one. I'll go ahead and say
No,
that.
I mean, yeah,
Um, that would be very surprising if it was, I'm sure. But even though it did win. But yeah, I mean, the strengths, like you listed a lot of the strengths, and just like if Jeremy Renner wasn't in this movie, I really like Anthony Mackie in it, but
hmm
like Jeremy Renner, just what he does, like the whole him kind of like talking with the kid and stuff with the DVDs and just that camaraderie with the I think that shows like an example of soldiers being over there and actually like doing good, and then also like being like presences there with like people that probably don't want them there.
yeah.
And I don't know, there's some layers to it.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's one of those where I think I really enjoy it, but best movie ever made, or of the last, or of this century, like you said, probably not.
I think I think
Yeah.
that's also goes back to the conversation of, does winning Best Picture hurt a film's legacy? Because a lot of the
Yeah.
times it'll help, like Ben-Hur, Lord of the Rings, Titanic, these ones that won so many awards. But like there are films I feel like that win Best Picture and people say like, F that film. Like honestly, I don't think people even bring up Green Book if it doesn't win. I think the fact that
Yeah.
it won is the reason why people are still talking about Green Book or Crash, and I'm not saying this is Green Book or Crash. I think this is better than those
No,
films.
this is
But
way better.
but
Yeah.
I still think like a lot of films, and we're even seeing it with films that I like Shape of Water, Coda, Nomadland. People are like, but was that the best picture? I feel like that's just gonna happen with every year, except for like the very few Parasites or Lord of the Rings of the world. But like
Right.
this is one of those where I feel like if it hadn't won Best Picture, I might have been more like, oh, this is a cool hidden gem. But I think the fact that it did win Best Picture, and not just Best Picture, but like all the big awards of the night except for the acting awards, like I think that kind of gives it more of a like overrated vibe, when in
Yeah.
reality it's really not.
Yeah.
It's like a very good film at what it's trying to do. It's just like I think when you put that pedestal,
Yeah.
that's where you kind of look at it differently. And that's why I'm glad Avatar didn't win to an extent, because I think if Avatar wins this, then people are even more so inclined to say like, it's overrated, it's the highest grossing and
Yeah.
it won Best Picture, kind of like how they did a little bit with Titanic, even though I feel like people are now come back around to Titanic.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm
But
in
yeah.
100% agreement with everything you said
Mhm.
about it. Yeah, I kind of wish maybe it would have been just one of the nominees, but didn't win, and then people could go, "Oh, I really like that
Mhm.
one." So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. So the Hurt Locker, the Academy really liked it because it won 6 out of the 9 nominations it was nominated for. So it got double the amount of Oscars Avatar did, including, as I said, Best Picture and Best Director for Catherine Bigelow, first woman to win. Original screenplay, sound editing, sound mixing, and also film editing. It was also nominated for, as you said, Jeremy Renner as Best Actor and Best Original Score and Cinematography. So the Hurt Locker talks about hurt in many different ways, shapes, and forms. You know what else hurts? Getting a swastika scalped into your forehead, or getting scalped. That really hurts. But you know who'll hurt you by doing those things? The Inglorious Bastards. So Chad, why don't you tell us about the Inglorious Bastards, spelled not like you would normally spell Inglorious Bastards, but Inglorious Bastards. Why don't you tell us?
All right. Inglourious Basterds, directed by Quentin Tarantino, written by Quentin Tarantino, cinematography by Robert Richardson, starring Brad Pitt, Melanie Laurent, Christoph Waltz, Eli Roth, Michael Fassbender, Diane Kruger, Daniel Bruhl, Till Schweiger, BJ Novak, Sam Levine, Mike Myers, and more. Synopsis. A Nazi officer searches for a Jewish woman who got away from him as a team of mercenaries kill Nazis.
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 Arrivederci.
Buongiorno.
Oh boy, I'll cut to the chase. I love this movie. I mean, it's no surprise to anyone who's watched my channel for long enough. You know, Spielberg and Tarantino. It's the basic choice, but those are my top 2 directors of all time. I got the Blu-ray there. It's like this film is so good. Probably the 18th to 19th time I've watched this film, probably. Like, not kidding. But I watched it because it's so good. Like, it's one of those movies that you could sit down and watch and doesn't get old for some reason. I think it's maybe because you have enough characters where you can like each segment kind of gives you a break of one character and kind of lets you in on another one. Like, it's not like you're following the same person the whole time. And I would say it is mostly Shoshana's story, her story, because she's the one who kind of comes from, you know, being hidden under the floorboards to being the one to take him down. Even though there are 2 groups of people trying to take them down, they just both happen to be in the same place. But yeah, tell us, Chad, what are your thoughts on Inglourious Basterds?
It's fantastic. I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, you know, Quentin Tarantino just knows how to make a movie. You know, even his like under kind of whelming ones are still good. You know, I don't think he has made anything bad, really. But yeah, this one's fantastic. This one was the first in the line of like the whole like revisionist history movies that he did, where you're building up. You're like, all right, well, we know how this goes. Hitler's not going. What the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah,
did they just kill Hitler? What?
In a movie theater?
That's what
people checking the Wikipedia. Like, wait, I thought he died in his bunker. What? Movie theater? What?
And it's just like, I think before this, nobody really thought you could just do something like that. Just rewrite history and just say, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to show it how people would have loved to see it. Rather, you know, all of the villains get just like mowed down in really crazy comical ways. We've already talked about Django Unchained. There's a lot of stuff like that in Django as well, with the woman getting shot and her flying across the room or whatever. It's just like in these crazy, like bombastic ways people die. And it's just so over the top, but in like, you know, the best like Quentin Tarantino way. And like, I not that long ago, just like last week or something, like heard somebody call Inglourious Basterds a drama. And I think it's technically defined as a drama, but I'm like, is it? I'm like, it's a Quentin Tarantino movie. I don't even know if these things can be classified.
That's the thing. I don't think it has a genre. Like, I think there are dramatic moments. Like, I think Shoshana's whole arc is dramatic. Like, it's, you know, she's the person hiding under the floorboard. She gets this movie theater. The scene where she's sitting in the restaurant with Hans Landa, and she's like, he finally leaves, and she lets out that cry. It's like, oh, that is devastating. That moment. I don't even know where I'm going with my best actor, best actress yet, but that one moment is probably my favorite acting of this 10 film slate. Like that one cathartic cry at the end, I'm like, whoa. And then just getting to the build up at the end. But yeah, like you said, there's so much comedy peppered in. There's action, there's violence, there's kind of horror at times. Like he makes it so it's so well rounded and fresh, and like he is his own genre. I think pulp is probably the best genre to put on it. But like, what is pulp? You know, is pulp comedy? Is pulp fiction? Is pulp drama? You know, like and that's another thing. Like, is pulp its own subgenre of something else? And I think that this film is really good in that. And even the little things, like the dramatic scene where they're all downstairs playing that game, and like you take 2 minutes to have this guy play a game where he's guessing King Kong, and like, is it necessary? No, but it just gives this more life. It just makes it feel lived in. It makes you build the suspense because you know something's gonna happen. That scene is incredible. I always used to ding this film. I always used to put in the middle to bottom of my Tarantino rankings, because I was always like, that scene is just like, I was like, so much buildup just for that shootout. Like, we barely know these characters. Michael Fassbender's there, fine, whatever. But now every time I watch it, I like that scene more and more, to where it almost might be my favorite scene. I just love that, and the subtle detail of the three fingers. Every time he holds it up, I'm like, oh no! If only you would hold up this, not this. Just like little moments like that, little details that I can go back and pick apart. I love it so much.
Well, because I mean, yeah, like even during that scene, because you're with Michael Fassbender and the other lady, I'm forgetting her name in the thing, but you're with them, you want them to succeed in their mission they're on, and you know that he's an American, right? So he's in there posing as like a German officer, and he's like, trying to, shoot down this one kid, and it's like, you whatever, and pulling rank on him, and then you have a legitimate like Nazi officer come over and question him, and he's like, no, he's right. Your accent sounds weird. And then you try the whole tension of just trying to defend himself and being confident about it and just all this stuff, and then you have the opening sequence, which a lot of people say is probably one of the greatest opening sequences to a film ever.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I would argue that 3 of these films on this slate are in contention for some of the best opening sequences ever. We haven't talked about 2 of them yet, but like this is one of them. Like this one opening scene is iconic and amazing in every sense of the word.
Yeah. And it's just one of those that like the only part that I don't love is Dylan should already know is the scene where they're eating and he's like, wait for the cream and stuff like that.
Wait for the cream. Yes. I'm not going to say it in the language, but my dad every
nailed
time
that.
Or Thanksgiving, Christmas or whatever, every time it's apple pie. He purposely hides the can so that way he waits till we're all settled down. He goes, wait for the cream.
Oh my God. I wish my parents were like that because that's hilarious.
It's just so funny. And then he'll like pull out the Cool Whip and I'm like, dude. Yeah, like that. He's so good. Like that man, Christoph Waltz. But tell us why you do not like that scene or do not love that scene.
No, yeah, I like the scene, but it's just like the sound design on him eating. Yeah. It's just trigger.
It's very
I don't know.
In your ears. I almost said in your face, but it's in
I'm just like, I'm trying to enjoy the scene. It's so tense. I know it's brilliant. I love it, but I have to almost mute it. Like I can't deal with him eating.
And I wonder if that's almost to emphasize the tension, the fact that it is so silent that you can hear every little sound. Like maybe that is intentional. Maybe it kind of gives you that squirmy feeling purposely. Like maybe it was effective. But again, like I understand your own personal the way you respond to things. Just that's a way we respond as natural human beings. But yeah, all those moments of tension are so good.
Other than that, I mean, it's like kind of a perfect movie. That's like really no faults with it. I mean, like, the villain is so despicable, like the way he talks about people, but in like this, kind of a joyous way.
Yeah,
and like
it's like he's almost got a charisma that like is infectious. Like Christoph Waltz is infectious. Hans Landa is totally the opposite, but it's like he makes it. I mean, Hans Landa, because it's Christoph Waltz, is infectious, but like it's infectious in the way that like you can't stop watching him even though you hate him so much. It's the best movie villains are all the same. It's like you can't look away because they're so evil. It's the Hannibal Lecter. It's the Joker in Dark Knight. Like you cannot look away. And the fact that we get just 2007 Javier Bardem in No Country, Dark Knight in 2008, and then this in 2009. The fact that the 3 supporting actor winners are some of the best evil villains in history, cinematic history of all time, and we get them back to back to back. That's just so cool that movies in the mid 2000s were like, or late 2000s, were just giving us some of the best villains ever, period.
Yeah. And I like also how I definitely agree, but I also like how because we're used to talking about like World War II Holocaust movies, and we're just like talking life is beautiful a lot, as we're very funny, but then it's also very heavy, but we're used to talking about heavy Holocaust movies because it makes sense. It's a very sad time, upsetting time, so of course it's got to be heavy, but this one just has like so much comedy and so much like delivering on like actually the reverse. You get so much like Nazi brutality in the movie that like it's almost like making up for having to see the reverse so much in every other movie, and you never get that like moment where, you know, the bear Jew just beats the shit out of a Nazi to death with a bat. And him like coming out of that tunnel, it seems like it's 10 minutes, takes 10 minutes for him to come out of that tunnel.
And that imagery, it's like, I think about, I don't know why my mind goes here, but the direct-to-video sequel, Pocahontas 2, Journey to a New World. There's a scene where there's a bear, and it kind of like emerges from the shadows like that. You like hear the chains. It's kind of like the Rancor in Star, or not the Rancor. You know, what am I thinking of? I'm thinking of in Star Wars Return of the Jedi, the creature that Luke fights in like the little dungeon area or whatever. Like when Rancor. Is it the Rancor? I don't know.
Yeah, it's the Rancor.
Yeah. Like how it kind of comes out of the darkness. Like I feel like that's such a common movie trope that you like introduce this big scary creature by like having it be dark and you hear the sound effects and then they slowly emerge from like a tunnel. And that's the same thing here. He's the bear Jew, but he's not a bear. He's not a creature. He's this guy. But it's just the idea of him coming out of this tunnel as if he were a chained animal. Like I could see if you could replace him with a real bear and the entrance would be the same, coming through that tunnel slowly. like that's what I like. It's like this predatory nature of like, I'm gonna fuck shit up because I am an animal, but in a good way. Like we're rooting for the animals in this sense. We're like, get them. And yes, they're kind of played to be stupid, but like, are they played to be stupid or just they can't speak out of their accents? You know, like the that scene's my favorite comedy of the whole movie, though. When Brad Pitt's trying to blend in at the party, like that is just so
I love Brad Pitt in this movie so much, just because because he doesn't care enough to really like, you know, he can't get out of his own, you know, whatever like Southern accent, whatever accent he has there, that he's just so unique. Like, and I want my scalps, and you can like quote him all the time, and it's just such a great like different performance from him that I just love him. And just the pause and the arrivederci. It's just so good.
Because the other guys are getting it. Like Eli Roth is soaking it up.
I speak the first best Italian.
But it's a masterclass. Everyone's firing at 100%, 110%. Tarantino, like there are dramatic moments, there are comedic moments, there are horrific moments. There's blood, there's guts, there's gore, there's tension, there's ups, there's downs. It has it all. Like literally, I agree with you. Like the more and more I watch it, the more I love it even more. Like it's not one of those movies where I get a little sick of it. Like there are moments in Django where even rewatching it, I'm kind of like, all right, like this scene drags a little bit. This, I'm like, no, like it all works. It all so good. And like of all the Tarantino movies we talked about, this, I don't know if this is my favorite. It's one of them though. Like this, I mean, we're gonna do a ranking on your channel at some point, but like
we will.
I won't spoil it, but this is high up. This is like top tier, top 2 or 3. Like I love this so much.
It's one of those things where a lot of people praise, like you know, deservedly so, like Pulp Fiction and stuff like that. Or some people may underrate Jackie Brown and things like that. And a lot of his earlier ones are like also kind of master classes in their own way. But a lot of people, like you could see, Inglourious Basterds is the beginning of like the new era of Quentin Tarantino and like this type of filmmaking. And it's different from anything he had ever done before. And everything since has been kind of like Inglourious Basterds, even though they're also, you know, the ones afterwards are still very unique and great.
Even if they're not revisionist history, they've got like a period sense to them. Like Inglourious Basterds is a period piece, so is Hateful Eight, so is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Django, I would say, kind of play into that revisionist history as well of like, you know, what if the slaves won? And like, what if, you know, what's her name? Oh my God, I'm blanking on her name. Survived. Sharon Tate. What if she survived? You know, like this idea of like, these are essentially fairy tales of real life history, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the epitome of the actual like fairy tale Once Upon a Time, but like this is essentially a fairy tale. It's like, and we all lived happily ever after, kind of.
I love that aspect about Inglourious Basterds, and I cannot wait to get to 2019 and talk about Hollywood, because I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I believe that'll be the last one we talk about too, because he didn't get nominated for any of the other ones. So, and we've already talked about 1994, but Yeah, great. Inglourious Basterds, 8 nominations. It only wins 1, but it's probably the most deserving win of the night, being supporting actor for Christoph Waltz. It's also nominated for Best Picture, Best Director for Quentin Tarantino, Best Original Screenplay for Quentin Tarantino, Best Sound Editing and Sound Mixing, even though Chad hates those eating noises. They were nominated.
There's good
Best
sound mixing.
cinematography, and Best Film Editing. Oh, this movie's so precious. Chad, tell us
That was a
about
great one.
Precious. Dude, that was
Great.
easy. That one was like served onto me like a silver platter. They pushed it in my face. They said, here's something precious. I'm gonna based on the novel Push by Sapphire in your face.
Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire, or just Precious for simplicity. Directed by Lee Daniels, written by Jeffrey S. Fletcher, cinematography by Andrew Dunn, music by Mario Grigorov, starring Gaborny Sidibe, Monique, Paula Patton, Mariah Carey, Sherry Shepard, Lenny Kravitz, and more. Synopsis: a young woman subjected to sexual abuse and other forms of abuse at a young age attempts to brighten her future.
That's right. This was a first watch for me. I don't believe it was for you, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I'm just gonna give you my thoughts first, since I'm
Cool.
the first timer here. I think this is a better depiction of more realistic, honest Black experiences than what we've talked about in The Blind Side, obviously. I still think it's a little too much of like, we're just gonna shove all the horrifying sorrows and hardships in your face. It almost feels like, when some people, when they're talking about horror, they talk about like torture porn. It kind of feels a little bit like poverty porn, in the sense of like it's just almost too extreme to where I'm like exhausted by the end of it. But I definitely think it makes its statement and it like gets its point across, and it has to be heavy to get across what it's trying to get across. And they do have those dream sequences to try to add some levity, but I was still, it was a heavy watch. It was very heavy watch, and I think no matter what circumstance, time of day, place in your life you're at, this is going to be a devastating watch for you. And I think that's the strength of the movie, but also a negative when looking at like this slate and like, oh, I'm gonna love that all time forever. Whereas this film, I'm like, all right, I saw it once, I'm good. But also like still very well done, and well acted. I mean, Gabourey Sidibe and Monique are just like two amazing performances. I'm surprised we haven't seen a lot of them since. I don't know much about Monique, but I believe she was a comedian,
Yes.
and worked in comedy for a while. And I believe this was Gabourey Sidibe's first film. So, yeah, like very interesting to see their performances and to see their careers since, because I feel like we haven't seen a lot of them. But great star-making performances in this. Like I think I appreciate this film more than I like it, because it is just so heavy that it's a little hard to get between. But like, you've seen this multiple times, so like having seen it again, like, are you able to like stomach it? Like, because it's a heavy story. Like, do you like this one? Do you find it a little overbearing? Like, what do you think of this?
No, I really like this one.
Cool.
The first time watching it, I remember probably felt the same way, and of course, I felt the same way again. Like, you can't really escape from it. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that you go, wait, people actually went through that, and then you can think like there are people that go through shit like that. There are people who live like that, who live, in this, whatever. And like, I think the strength of this movie is how it gets into like such like psychological trauma of the characters that like it just feels so real. And like it doesn't like it takes like what you would think of as a monster and it humanizes them and says, these, like, the mom Monique is not a monster, even though she does some monstrous things in the movie, like the way she treats her daughter, who has like is like cerebral palsy, because she was born of sexual assault by her father, which is just one of the terrible things that has happened to one of the characters in the movie. But I do like how it's a little bit uplifting about how she starts to develop like these outside relationships with the kids in the school and the teacher who and she's not like a teacher. She's not like Sandy B from The Blind Side, where she's like, I'm gonna try to, help. Like she feels like an actual character, and she like, punishes the kids when they're like bad and stuff like that. She doesn't, let them get off easy, and if they're doing something wrong, she's actually a teacher, like a good teacher.
Yeah.
And has her own character and own life and stuff that we get to see a little bit of. And even like their like little relationships with Lenny Kravitz in the movie as like a male nurse. They're like, wait, men can be nurses, and stuff like that. So there's I don't know, there's a lot of weight to it. And I don't know if you have to see it multiple times to maybe like appreciate it more, or maybe this is just, some people I think really are fine with the movies that make you want to get into the fetal position. Like the really sad.
Sometimes
depressing.
if you're upset, like I've heard a lot of people say, like, watch something to cheer yourself up. But sometimes you don't need cheering up. Sometimes you kind of need to be upset. Like it's kind of the inside out thing of like, you can let yourself be sad. And sometimes when I'm upset, I want something that's a downer. I want to put on this or like a Michael Haneke Amour, and just sit and be like depressed.
Somebody else went through this pain too.
Yeah, it's like this is one of those movies which would be perfect for that vibe of like, are you having a shitty day and you don't feel like feeling better? You just want to kind of wallow in it, because some people need to wallow in it. Some people need to let themselves be sad. Then here's Precious. And it's interesting what you said about the Monique character, because I honestly didn't get any redemption from her. I thought the last scene was going to go that route of like kind of a reconciliation with Precious, but then you find out that she admits to the fact that she was jealous of Precious, that like she was sleeping with her man when that's not really the case. And it's like, I get it, like you're understanding where she's coming from, but I don't think it ever tries to like redeem her in that sense. Like I think she's one of the most evil villains in cinema, and I get she's put in this perspective of she's put in this place where it's like she can't help it, like her husband is raping her daughter, but it's also like, I mean, still that's no excuse to treat your kid like that, like out of jealousy. Like she was a little kid, like she was always treating Precious that way because she was always jealous that the husband liked her more or whatever. Like, and that's real shit. Like some mothers resent their kids for that and vice versa, because they feel like, a kid takes away from their own romantic life or whatever. And that's what we see in a lot of movies, not necessarily about sexual assault, but just in familial films in general. Just like the idea that a kid can bring a lot into your life, and in a lot of positive ways. And this is, I think, one of the examples of her never intending on being a negative force in her mother's life, but her mother just immediately from the get-go, because of what it did to her and her husband's relationship, or her boyfriend, like how she had always resented Precious and it never changed. And I think that last scene is to emphasize that like she can't really get past it. She's like, I know what I did, and I can acknowledge what I did, and I can acknowledge why I did it, but I still did it, and I'm gonna do it because like you took so much away from me. And I like how she kind of walks out at the end. Precious, she kind of is like, I'm gonna set forth my new life. And when she asked Mariah Carey for help too, she's like, can you help? And Mariah Carey walks away too. And it's good. It's like there's that optimism, like you talked about, of Precious being able to kind of like forge a new path, and kind of take matters in her own hands and get her life back together. And I love this in comparison to The Blind Side as a comparison. Like I love comparing the two, because Blind Side, it's very much like we're going to help you, whereas Precious is like, no, I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna get myself there. And I think Precious is such a much more well-rounded and compelling character than Michael Orr is. And Michael Orr is the real life person, and yet they can't make him more compelling. Whereas here, I think like because it's a black team putting this thing together. I mean, Oprah produced this. Like, this is one of Oprah's big film breakouts. Like, she wasn't in it obviously, but she was like the producer on this. I think that's why it had such success at the Oscars, because it's a small little Sundance movie, but it ended up being a big hit because Oprah was behind it, really campaigning for it. And it didn't work for Selma later. It got a Best Picture nomination, but it didn't get as many nominations for Selma. But she definitely made it work here, because it is an important work, and it actually is told from black voices, I think, which is important for a story like this, as heavy-handed as it can be, as tough as it is. Like I don't think I need more watches to appreciate it. I do appreciate it, just I don't think I'll get anything more out of it, in the fact that like I've seen it once, it made me upset, and I don't necessarily know if I want to go through that again. But that's a testament to how good it is.
Yeah, and there is like a lady who actually, like a white lady who from her school that comes and extends an olive branch,
Right.
but it is then Precious who has to decide to kind of defy her mother and go and
Hmm.
like not just go get welfare and try to take the easy way out, or I guess easy way because it's not a life that she wants to have, to sit in that place with her mother as she forces her to cook for her and then eat stuff that she doesn't think is appropriate for her, and stuff like that. And that's why she has gained so much weight, and she hates herself, and all this stuff. And and then it does end on like a happy note, but like, yeah, with the like the scene at the end when you do get a little bit more of you know characterization from Monique's character, and you just see that it's like, I don't think I've ever seen before this movie just a kind of like a dysfunctional family like that, and like somebody who has that kind of psyche that you explained of
Hmm.
you know like any like no one's really normal, but like a normal family, a mother wouldn't you know let their daughter be sexually assaulted and then blame the daughter for it, and like say like like that whole thing that you said that was like, but that doesn't make sense. Like a normal like mom wouldn't, like that would be despicable and stuff, but it's like you can almost see like her life probably way before that movie, and just like what the road that kind of like led her to being in that mental state where she is so dependent on somebody like that, that she would end up being so jealous of her daughter. And why didn't he want me, why did he want my daughter? And then I don't know, there's so much
Oh yeah, it's
psychological
very
stuff in
nuanced.
it. Yeah.
And I think
And
Monique, I think the actors bring so much to it. Like Monique,
agree. Yeah,
it,
yeah,
if you look at any like top 10 supporting actress winners lists like of all time, she's in the top 5 of most of them. Like
yeah,
people love this performance because it is kind of like it's layered, but it's still like it's a villain performance, but it
yeah,
is
yeah,
layered and it's got so many different ins and outs to it. And again, coming from someone who is not normally seen in this light, like this is a performer that was a comedian and didn't really
yeah.
flex these sides of her acting ability before, and to give a performance that's not just good but like exceptional, that's pretty awesome.
Agree, totally agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire, which I haven't read. Maybe I should read it. Wins 2 out of the 6 nominations it's up for. It wins Best Supporting Actress for Monique, and it wins Best Adapted Screenplay for the adaptation of the book Push by Sapphire. It is nominated for Best Picture, Best Director for Lee Daniels, Best Actress for Gabourey Sidibe, and Best Film Editing. So a very serious film. But now we're going to go into another darkly comedically, but also serious film. A Serious Man, not to be confused with A Simple Man, which came out the same year. A Serious Man, the other movie about a white guy with glasses going through shit. Tell us, Chad, about A Serious Man.
A Serious Man, directed by Joel Cohen and Ethan Cohen, written
Oh,
by Joel Cohen and Ethan Cohen. Cinematography, why did I do that? By Roger
maybe an inside
Deakins,
joke. I
the
don't know.
great Roger Deakins. Music by Carter Burwell. I said his name before. Starring Michael Stuhlbarg, Richard Kind, Fred Melamed, Sari Linnick, Alan Mandel, Adam Arkin, George Weiner, Amy Landecker, and Simon Helberg. Synopsis: a Jewish man's life falls apart, leading him to question his faith.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. I'll be out in a minute. I'm back. So we're talking about A Serious Man. Was this a first watch for you, Chad?
No, second watch.
Oh, cool, cool, cool. This is a first watch for me, and I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan, so I'm surprised I didn't see
Same.
this because this has been said to be like the most personal to their life and their experience, and in the fact that they're Jewish men, and kind of navigating the avenues of life, and the idea of paralleling your own life to the biblical stories or religious stories that you grew up with, and the religious side of yourself, the faith, and what it means to lose the faith or question the faith or find faith to be the explanation behind your successes but also your failures. And this film, I loved it. I think this is, if not the, I don't think it's the best Coen Brothers film. I think there are still better ones, but like this might have been the most surprising in the fact that like not as many people talk about this one. And maybe it's because it only gets nominated for a few Oscars, and Michael Stuhlbarg isn't really a huge star. He's not as big a face as like a Frances McDormand or like a Denzel Washington in Macbeth, but yeah, this one really took me by surprise. I mean, from its very first opening, and that opening I think is genius. I mean, I talked about how there's so many great openings in these movies. This one especially, like kind of setting the scene to the fact that like this is gonna really dive deep into like Judaism, but also like there's that dark edge to it. The whole like this guy walks in and it's like he needed some soup, and she's like, but that guy died. And it's like this is an imposter, and stabs him, and it sets up the tone very early on that this is a dark story, but it's a comedic story, but it's also got so much on its mind about religion and psyche and life. And there's a lot to chew on here. There's a lot to ponder, a lot to grasp on first watch that I'm excited to go back to it and rewatch it. But Chad, as a second time viewer, what did you get out of this? Did you enjoy this? Are you a fan of the Coen Brothers? I mean, obviously you are.
Yeah.
Maybe you aren't. I don't know. I don't think we talked about Coen Brothers. Oh no, we did. We talked about No Country on here.
Yeah.
But yeah. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, and I think this one is actually kind of very similar to No Country in a way, because it's like, I don't know, it feels like it's a lot of like metaphor and like shot composition, and just like kind of got to read like the subtext and all the stuff. When the first time I watched this, I was like, this was a Best Picture nominated film, and this is a Coen Brothers movie. I didn't get it at all. I was like, maybe it's because I'm not Jewish. Like, do you have to be Jewish to really understand this, to really like this?
Because it is so laden with the Jewish.
And it's almost like, I was like, I don't know, like I feel like I've watched like other foreign films sometimes that I got more than like watching this, because I'm not a Jewish person, and I don't know that much about like the culture, and but I think you can learn a lot about the culture from the movie and stuff like that. But I liked it more on the second watch, which I was very happy about, because this was one that I was just like, I'm going to have to rank this like really low in like my Coen Brothers, whatever, because I just don't get that one. That's just one I don't get. But now I liked it a lot more. Like, the opening, I still don't totally understand, but I like, though. I think it's very creepy. And then the end shot is really interesting, too. And just like, the uncertainty there about like is it a tornado, right? Or
hurricane? It's a hurricane or tornado. I assume just based on the geography, it looks more to be a tornado, but I don't know. But it's a storm. It's coming, and it's like when he finally gets his life together, it's like, nope, but there's a tornado.
Right.
Yeah, and it's the idea of that guy who like nothing goes right for this guy. Nothing.
No.
And like they could have played it out to be this total slapsticky, like you could put Chevy Chase or Jim Carrey in this movie in like the 70s or 80s, and it probably makes like a shit ton of money, and it's like, this bumbling idiot, like, oh, nothing's going right for me. But instead it's more about like, nothing's going right for me, and I don't know why, and I'm questioning my faith, and I'm questioning my religion, and what does this have to do with anything? I mean, it is a direct adaptation, not direct, but it is based on the book of Job itself. The fact that Job is like, all these things are happening to him, and he doesn't understand why, and he doesn't understand, he can't grasp what's going on, and all these things.
He's being
like,
tested.
Right, like the idea that like this guy gets into like a little car accident and then goes, he's like, I got in a car accident, whatever. He's on the phone. He's like, I have been in an accident, sir. Hangs up the phone, gets home. Turns out the wife that just told him she was leaving him for another man, that man died in a different car accident. And it's like, just what are the odds? It's like every little thing just piling.
I love how they set up that the two sides of them going in the cars, and you're like, what is something's about to happen?
And it's
Are they
not even
going to
those
crash
two cars
into each other?
That's what I thought it was. And when he comes home, I'm like, wait, I rewound it. I was like, wait, that wasn't the car he hit. It's not. It just happens to be. And of course, it's like, of course that happens. He's like, of course, this is just another thing on top of everything. Because now it's like, not only am I inconvenienced, but now this guy that my wife supposedly loved is now out of the picture. And now that's going to be a whole whirlwind for us. And yeah, it's just a lot of just piling on. And yeah, I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, the Coens are just like really masters of like crafting these stories, and like everything's like nothing's really out of place. Everything
Mhm.
comes together. They love to, focus on certain characters and build them up, and or tear them down, I guess in this case. And Yeah, it's just a really interesting movie to see this guy, yeah, go through his life, and the life is crashing down to a point that he just starts crying.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. It,
it's, it's very funny that
mhm.
his life is falling apart.
Yeah, yeah, it's very darkly funny, and that was the point I was making about like the Jim Carrey thing. Like you could do this as a full fledged comedy, but like
Wouldn't
I think
work.
it
Yeah.
works in the fact that it is so dark, and Michael Stuhlbarg plays it so well. I actually heard a theory that like that opening scene, because it's supposed to just set up like obviously the Jewish themes and just the idea of like you know kind of karma in a sense, because it's like this old man helped the husband on the way home, helped him on the side of the road, and he offered him soup. But then when he came home and he said his name, the woman realized that the guy he introduced himself as is dead. So he must be this evil demon spirit. So she kills him. But then he walks out into the nights with a smile on his face. And I've heard theories that that family that like offered him, that welcomed him in the home, but then stabbed him right in the chest, is an ancestor to Michael Stuhlbarg's character. So all this bad luck that he's getting is because of this
Oh,
fantastical thing that happened to his ancestors. I don't necessarily buy it, but like I think that's an interesting choice. The idea that like what
it's an interesting
happened,
theory.
like the fact that like our ancestors build, our foundations and like can like impose bad karma on us generations later. And I'm like, that's an interesting theory. And maybe that's the case. And honestly, with the culture, maybe sometimes they think like, oh, what did my ancestors do to bestow this upon me? And that kind of adds a little bit more comedy to it too. And the fact that like, because of this old Yiddish man that may have been a demon, may have not have been, getting stabbed in the chest, now all this stuff is kind of burdening Michael Stuhlbarg's character. I don't know. There's a lot to
Yeah.
chew on, like I said, and stuff that like even I don't understand like on first glance. And I'm not Jewish, but I was in Fiddler on the Roof my senior year of college, or senior year of high school, so I did like a lot of like very in-depth study on Judaism and all that stuff.
Oh,
So like it was cool to see a lot of that, but also like I still have a long way to go in learning
yeah, yeah, yeah.
about all that. So I'm interested to talk to other people who can more relate to the experiences personally, and like
Yeah.
give me a little bit more of a sense of what's going on, and the actual religious psyche going on in the back of his brain.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like that's kind of the cool thing about certain movies is that they can be like somebody who's not connected to that, because I mean it's still like a human story. So really anybody can like, understand the movie, like the characters, feel for the characters, stuff like that, and just really dig the movie. But maybe like somebody who is Jewish and who grew up with this in the same way that the Coens did will experience it on a different level, and I think that's really cool as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun to see like certain things like his first thing is my life is falling apart. I need to talk to the rabbi. I need to talk to that other rabbi, and and stuff like that. And then and then just like certain scenes that it just feels very Cohen's, like the teachers or the principal or whatever of the school like trying
Mhm.
to figure out what the hell this like Walkman thing is, and it's like he's like, you put it in your ears, and it's like
Yeah.
it's like what.
Yeah. Oh my god, that character is one of the funniest guys. Like when he pops in the office and he's like, "So like, don't this isn't anything to get nervous about. Like it does not affect your tenure, but like someone is here questioning whether or not you should be getting tenure." And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, what?" Yeah, and then the Asian kid who's like dad is basically saying, "You better give my kid a good grade, otherwise I'm going to sue you for this envelope of money that I'm leaving you that you will have stolen when I sue you."
Yeah.
And the fact that at the end he's kind of just completely given up, and he's like, you know what, F it, and he gives the kid a C, and he gives some of the money to his brother, and his brother, who is so funny, the "I'll be out in a minute,"
Richard
which
Kind, yeah.
happens maybe like 20 times in the first 30 minutes. I honestly didn't think we were ever going to actually see him. I thought the whole gag was going to be that he's out in a minute, like every scene, but then we actually do
At the
see him,
end of
and,
the
and he has a
movie,
kind of tragic story, but like
he's
no, it
got like
is
a
very,
gambling addiction.
yeah, it is very interesting though to like, that whole that was funny too, because like that feels that's very reminiscent of what I learned when I was doing like the study on like the Jewish culture, especially modern, like the banter and the way the family dynamic is. Like it reminded me of Shiva Baby almost as well. And
Oh
Fred Miller,
yeah. Hmm.
who plays the guy the wife leaves him for, he was the dad in
Hmm.
Shiva Baby. He's also I believe, is he in WandaVision? Am I thinking of the right guy? I don't know. I think he's the guy in WandaVision in the
Oh,
first episode who chokes on the lobster. But yeah, he's just such a great character
maybe.
actor too. It feels lived in. It feels almost like their most like personal, like I said, film, because it is
Hmm.
dealing with their heritage and stuff, but also like maybe they're most mature in the sense that like it does have very heady concepts, and it's going for something a lot more ponderous than like something a little bit more straightforward or a little bit more entertaining per se. Yeah, like I really like this. It's not my favorite, but of the Coen Brothers or of the slate, but I think it's a cool gem that I didn't think I'd love as much as I did, and I'm excited to go back to it.
Yeah, and I'm excited that I liked it a lot more than the
Hmm.
first time I watched it because I feel like I actually get it now. But I feel like because it's such a complex movie and it is dealing with the culture I was like really unfamiliar with, that
Right,
the more I watch it, the more I get out of it, and the more I go, oh, I actually really like this, and I can connect with that character more now.
right.
So
Cool. So, A Serious Man, again, just like The Blind Side and like An Education, is only nominated for a few awards. It's nominated for two: Best Picture and Original Screenplay, which it does not win. But things cannot go down for A Serious Man. They can only go up. Why don't we talk about Disney Pixar's Up, the second film ever, its second animated film ever to be nominated for Best Picture out of three, and maybe four by the time you all hear this in a few months. We'll see. Chad, tell us about Disney Pixar's Up.
Up, directed by Pete Docter, written by Bob Peterson and Pete Docter, cinematography by Patrick Lynn and Jean Claude Calachi, music by Michael Giacchino, starring Ed Asner, Christopher Plummer, Jordan Nagai, Bob Peterson, Delroy Lindo, John Ratzenberger, and Ellie Doctor. I believe that's his little daughter.
Yeah,
Synopsis. An elderly man goes on a trip to South America to fulfill a promise he made to his late wife.
yeah, it's America, but it's South. Um, Again, one of those things where if you watch the channel, I am a huge Disney fiend, a big Pixar fiend. I'm sure everyone knows Chad is also a big Pixar Disney fan. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of those films that like the second I saw it, I was like, this is gonna be an all timer for me. And it still is. It's one that for me is held up. I know everyone just talks about those first 10 minutes, which are devastatingly good.
Hmm.
The Michael Giacchino score is perhaps my favorite film score ever.
So good.
And it just totally using the same theme, but then like deciding when to make it more upbeat and then when to make it like that soft piano version, but it's still the same theme. It's like, oh, that's devastating. But I don't think it's just the beginning. And I know that's like the whole argument is like, is it just the beginning and then it just tails off? Like, I really do think the whole presence of Ellie, even though she passes away early on, spoiler alert. I mean, if you haven't seen it, you probably heard about the beginning of this film. The fact that she dies, like she's still in the movie the whole time, and the fact that like the house is the metaphysical representation of her. And I like the moments where just kind of offhand where Carl will say like, oh, we're almost there, Ellie. Like he almost talks to the house as
Hmm.
if it's her. Like that to me keeps me engaged, and that's why I think it's more than just the beginning, because like it's consistent throughout that this is all for Ellie. It's all his dream with her, and the fact that we get those cathartic moments at the end and the final shot with the house on the falls, like all that to me builds up to a greater whole than just those first 10 minutes. But I've heard the arguments,
Hmm.
obviously, and I know at times you've talked about like how like some aspects don't work as well as others in this film. But I'm excited to hear what you think now, probably having seen this a few times before. What do you think of Up, Chad? Where you
I do think the first 10 minutes are like perfect. You could just watch that as like a short film and you would just get all
go?
the feels from it. But there's another moment in the movie that I just adore, which is thanks. What was it? What is it, Dylan? Thanks for the adventure.
Thanks for the
Go have your
adventure. Now
own.
go have a new one or something. Yeah, like go
Yeah,
have a new one. Yeah, when he's open
and
flipping through the book, and again, all in
yeah,
both those sequences are all in silence. Like we're not getting any
yeah.
dialogue. It's all music and visuals, and I think that's the power of this movie. Is that like it's quiet. I mean, Russell and Doug talk. Obviously, Doug talks. But it's the stuff with Carl is very internalized. It's very
Squirrel.
much in his head. We're kind of in Carl's head too in those moments, just kind of taking it in, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and so there's so many things in this movie that I actually really love, like that moment. And yeah, a lot of that moment is still hearkening back to the first 10 minutes, like because of that weight. You care about these characters from that first 10 minutes, but it propels forward throughout the rest of the movie. And exactly like you said, like, just him holding on to her and holding on to this dream that they were never able to actually have together. Just like things that I always wanted to do with my wife, I could totally see myself, letting something like that happen. So it's like almost like a wake up call. Like, don't let the life and struggles that come ahead keep you from doing things that you always wanted to do, and
Right.
stuff like that. And then tragedy strikes, and then he has to learn that just because his I'm gonna start crying.
Right?
um
The
I
power of
know, just
cinema, people. The power.
just thinking about him missing his wife so much, and like him wanting her, just wanting to hold on to that feeling of her, but then she has those words of wisdom that I guess he never saw before, and then like he sees, or at least sees it in a different context, and then he's able to actually let her go. And I love just like the arc of him like learning that, and like learning to let go, and just like and he goes from this like frail old man that just can barely get around to like this
Mhm.
kind of action hero kind of deal,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
really cool how
'cause
they
it,
show
yeah.
that progressing.
I was gonna say, I think the film makes it out earlier to be that he's a lot older than he is, and like he's old. But I think it's
Yeah,
also like I think the fact that he did lose her, he just is less active. So
he
like he
shut
probably
down.
could
Yeah.
do more, but yeah, it's like you shut down, and essentially he kind of gets his life back through this, and to where the point where like at the end of it, like it's he sacrifices so much because at first it's like any little scratch on the house is like an offense to him and his wife and his wife's memory. But then as he goes on, he learns to let go to where he essentially sacrifices the house to help Russell because he finds that connection with him and the fact that he can like finally connect with someone or
Hmm.
something, and and he does, and but then it ends up being that the house ends up there anyway, and that to me, like the movie ends perfectly, but then it pans up and you get that shot of the house, and it's like that's like the chef's kiss. That's a cherry on top of like, wow. So even when all is said and done, it still ends up being Ellie is sitting atop Paradise Falls at the end, and I'm like, ugh, I'm a blubbering mess when I watch this movie because like,
Yeah.
I yeah, growing old is always scary to me, but like growing old and alone, I think is even scarier. And I think that's
Hmm.
like what this movie gets at. It's a Pixar movie, it's a kids movie, but it gets at so many mature themes. And yes, there's the talking dogs, but I think you need that a little bit, the levity and the comedy, because it is a Disney Pixar movie. And I think the comedy is done very well. I think it's very tasteful, very smart. I like the idea of these collars being able to speak, and Alpha's voice is fucked up a little, and he kind of has like a Weasley voice. And the fact that Delroy Lindo signed on to do this, like the Delroy Lindo, pretty cool. But yeah, like I like the comedy bits. I think they work. Kevin is a great. I love her. And the babies and the chocolate and all that. Like I love it. And the villain. I know we've talked personally about the villain, and
Hmm.
it's the very stereotypical like don't meet your heroes type thing of like
Yeah, I was gonna say the
yeah,
exact same
it's not
thing.
going to
Yeah.
turn out to be what you expected. But I kind of like that. Like I think that's an interesting moral to teach kids because again, it's like how much of your life are you going to spend focused on something you've been focused on for so long and haven't gotten and aren't willing to open up new experiences. And I think that's all it is for Carl is like it's all been about Charles Muntz and Ellie, and by the end of this it's not, it's about Russell and it's about Ellie's memory, but also like the new people that he actually has and not the past that he's trying so hard to cling on to. He has to learn to let that go, and what letting go means. It doesn't mean totally abandoning that side of yourself, but it also means like letting go essentially to some aspects of that, and being able to move on and move forward in a way, which
Yeah.
is deeply profound for a kids movie, let alone from Pixar that had done so many amazing works before. But like I feel like this is as deep as they got, at least until like Inside Out and stuff. But like this is
Yeah.
as deep as they've gotten at that point.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's really like my only kind of negative is that because the movie does go on a little too long after that perfect 10 minutes, like I feel like as the further away you get from that and the more it kind of like drags on a little bit for me,
Mm.
I'm just like, okay, it feels its length a little bit. And then like with Charles Muntz, I almost feel like you don't need him in the movie. Like I get it, like kind of like you know, striving to meet that thing and stuff like that. But it's also like Paradise Falls was that. So almost don't even think he's necessary of a character. And I feel like that's why, like I think why I would pick Finding Nemo like just slightly above Up
Mhm.
is because Finding Nemo doesn't even really have a true villain. The villain
Right.
is him learning not to let go of his
Mhm.
son, and that's kind of the same thing that Up does later, but it also tries to throw in this like villain and
Mhm.
the bird, and he's chasing this bird, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with anything about the actual main story.
Yeah,
But
that's fair.
I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
that's the only thing that kind of like makes me take a tiny tick from it. I think the
Yeah, that's
rest of
fine.
it is
Yeah.
so great though. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
right there with you.
Yeah, if sometimes I think the villain is a metaphor for his past and the fact that like that was who Carl was and not who Carl is, and like him basically learning to like, oh, he's not everything you turned out to be. It's like some things, you got to be able to be spontaneous sometimes in life, and not everything is going to be the way you planned or something like
Yeah.
that. But I do agree, like maybe it's not the most like prevalent part of the film, but again, it doesn't take away from me. But
Yeah.
again, like I think it's perfect, but also I grew up with this being like this was the year from Dark Knight to here. Like this came out in the span of the year where I was still like, what are movies? Oh my god. And yes, this is a Disney movie, so I was gonna see it regardless. But like seeing movies in just a different light, like I was just looking at this in a different way. Whereas like I hadn't even looked at Finding Nemo or Incredibles or Ratatouille in this way. Like this was the first Disney Pixar movie to really open my eyes, and then Toy Story 3 the next year. It was like really a 1-2 punch of just like this is cinema, but also the things you love, but the things you're going to love the rest of your life. So yeah, it was really awesome to see.
And I think in a way, like because you're such a huge stan of Up, it made me want to rewatch and appreciate it more because I'm like, what Dylan really loves this one. It was nominated for Best Picture. There has to be something to this. And,
Mhm,
so I watched it in a different light. But I think like because Up is such a personal one for you, I
mhm.
think that's kind of like where I am with stuff like Finding Nemo, just a little bit
Right.
earlier
Yeah.
because that's when I was like a lot younger, and this was when I
Right.
was 19. So
Yeah. Right. True. 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 True.
still
I feel like
liked it a
this
lot,
movie
but
hits you either when you're like trying, like finally learning what more mature stories are, like at my age at like
mhm,
11, or like you've been through a romance that has either died or broken up or something where you're like holding on to too much of it, or you're in a happy romance or a happy relationship where someday it's gonna have to come to an end somehow,
mhm.
whether it be by by death do you part or by a more difficult means. Like I think this film tackles that, and I'm honestly impressed that Disney did greenlight something like this. And I think part of the reason is we have this colorful bird, we have this talking dog who's hilarious. I love Doug.
And I love Doug too, by the
Yeah,
way. Like
Doug's great.
that's such a fantastic
And
character. Yeah,
Russell, I
agree.
like Russell. I think
Oh, amazing.
he's the perfect balance of being annoying but not too annoying.
He finally gets his
Annoying to where it's
badge.
endearing. Yeah, I love the badge scene, the Ellie badge, and I love that he also has a void in his life too, and you kind of see that. And at the end when Carl shows up for him, it's like
Yeah.
I love it.
He's an
So
adorable
good.
character
Yeah,
too. Yeah, I
and
love
and
him.
again, we talked all about animation in the last video, so I won't dwell on it. But it's cool that the Academy was recognizing this because it doesn't recognize animation often enough.
Do you know off the hand the trivia of how many balloons it was? I love when he first opens the like unveils and you see all the tanks and it's like, oh, that's his yard's trash. Some people don't take care of their yards. And then the balloons come out and then you get to see the house lifting off of the foundation and stuff breaking, and it's such a
Mhm.
great sequence.
Okay, so in the actual animation of the balloons, Pixar used 20,622 balloons in the liftoff sequence. And then whenever you see the house floating, there were
Mhm.
10,297 animated balloons. But
Ah,
realistically, Pixar said it would take maybe 23.5 million balloons to lift that square house. So we only
Yeah,
see about
houses are
20.
heavy.
Yeah, we only see 20,000 with our eyes, which is still a lot for animators to do 20,000 balloons. But realistically, it would be more like 20 million. But then some people would say you need 9.4 million to lift an empty house, and then with the furniture it'd be like 24 million. So millions and millions and millions and millions of balloons it would take. There's no definite number. I remember in it's not eighth grade, sophomore year of high school, we did a class. It was like AP chemistry. So like after the AP exams, we had that whole month where it was like, what do we do for the rest of school now that the AP exam is over? And we did this project where she assigned us all a movie, and we had to like do science and like basically see if these scientific theories hold up. Of course, my group got stuck with Interstellar, so that was a lot to process. The time shit and gravity and Interstellar.
Yeah.
But one group got the up problem of like how many balloons, and another one got how many hairs would be on Rapunzel's head in order to support a whole human body.
And
like
you got relativity.
Yeah, and I got literal like relativity and time jumps and planets, but it was fun. I was with smart people who did most of the work. I just worked on the presentation slideshow and made it look cool. But yeah, the up challenge, it was pretty cool. They like had a little diorama, a little model. I was like, that's pretty fun. With little balloons. But Up is nominated for 5 Academy Awards and wins 2 of them, which is pretty good for an animated film to be nominated for 5. Normally nowadays we see usually 1 or 2 if it gets like a song nomination, but this one was up for 5. It was up for Best Animated Feature and Original Score, both of which it won, and then it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Sound Editing. So we've come to the final film of this slate. We went up. Let's go even higher. Let's go up in the air. So not just up, in the air. Let's do it, Chad. Tell us about Up in the Air.
Up in the Air, directed by Jason Reitman, written by Jason Reitman and Sheldon Turner, cinematography by Eric Steelberg, music by Rolf Kent, starring George Clooney, Vera Farmiga, Anna Kendrick, Jason Bateman, Amy Morton, Melanie Linsky, Dana McBride, Zach Galifianakis, J.K. Simmons, and Sam Elliott. Synopsis: a traveling corporate downsizer questions his life and way of doing things, or way of living.
Grab my whiteboard because we're going to rank these after, and I need to write it all down. But yeah, not a first time watch for me, and I don't believe a first time watch for Chad. But this was only a second watch, and the last time I watched this was a few years after this came out. So like it's been maybe like at least 8 years since I've seen this movie. So it was very interesting to see it just as an older person and to see how like just technology has changed and travel has changed with like COVID and stuff. It's almost like become a period piece at this point because it's like so ingrained with flying and airports and stuff that like even just I don't know the last time you've been to an airport, but like it's different. It's a different world post COVID with like airlines and flying and all that stuff. But it's very interesting, and the fact that this is just a movie about a guy who really likes the life of like the road and being out and about and flying and stuff. Like, how do you make a 2-hour movie about that? But they do, because they bring a lot of really interesting humanity to it. It's not just like, hey, look at all the cool things we do as people who fly in planes. And like look at all the cool perks. Look at all my miles. Like there's actual like substance there. But what do you think of Up in the Air, Chad?
Fucking love this movie.
Yeah, me too.
I love this movie so much. I don't know. This is just like my kind of movie. Also, I Jason Reitman, when he's not trying to make a Ghostbusters, I really like Jason Reitman when he's just doing his own thing, not trying to follow in his father's footsteps. Yeah, I fucking love Juno, so I love this one as well. And yeah. I don't know.
Has he ever done any other Oscar stuff? No. Thank you for
Smoking. He did. Did he do Young Adult? Yeah, I really like that one as well.
Tully, Men, Women,
Tully's great.
The Front Runner. He's got some good movies. He's a good guy. Yeah.
And this one, I don't know. I mean, I think I ranked Michael Clayton number 1. Another. I'm not saying I'm ranking this number 1. Right.
And I put The Descendants number 1. So we are both Clooney stans.
We are, yeah.
We're both and I love for Clooney.
And I love Clooney in this movie as well. I love his whole kind of like, questioning of things. Like he doesn't, start questioning it until later. Like he meets Anna Kendrick's character, he meets Vera Farmiga, he starts to fall for her, even though she has like a way different kind of mindset about their
Yeah.
relationship than he ends up having.
Well, and I think
And
that's the thing is like the whole
mhm.
time he thinks he's that. He thinks he's the one who's
Yes,
like just on the road or sleeping around, but then at the end you realize he's not. Like he actually does want something more, and she's the one who's totally like, no, like this is just for fun. Like I have a family, and this was such a better family reveal than Education. This was like a oh
yeah,
holy crap. Like Education, I was like could have seen that coming. This one, I was like I was floored, and rewatching it, I forgot, and I was like,
I did too.
oh yeah,
I
I
did
was like,
too.
I think they end up together at the end because I think the whole thing is that they learn that
Yeah,
they can
like it'd
find
be
love, and I'm
sweet.
like, wait, no, she doesn't grow. She's no.
And I keep forgetting because like I did forget also. And then as soon as like he was walking, like he showed up at the door, I went, oh my god, she's married. I forgot. Like there's no way, that she comes out and they kiss and
Mm,
whatever. Yeah, it's a really good reveal. Really sad because
yeah,
like you kind of want him to, whatever. And then like I don't know, yeah, like he finally like went like gets his he meets his airline limit. He gets to talk with the pilot, and he's like, I've thought about this moment for a very long time, and I don't even remember what I was gonna say, and
mm,
stuff like that. And I got like so much joy as soon as because the whole time too he's like trying to he's getting pictures with his sister and her
yeah,
fiance like as like a cardboard cutout of them
hmm
in different locations because he gets to travel everywhere for work,
right,
and they're like we can't afford to go anywhere, and then he has so many miles racked up, he's like, I'm gonna gift them the miles to go around the world. And I'm
hmm
just like, that just got me in the
yeah.
feel so much. And
Well,
just like
yeah.
him using like things that he learned about relationship to, kind of give a pep talk to Danny McBride, who, it kind of is having cold feet. And then, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say I love the moment too where he's at the wedding and he sees all the pictures displayed because the whole time he thinks he's this hot shot. He's so cool. Like he gets to be up in the air all the time. But then he sees this thing and he's like, oh, like my pictures are like amongst hundreds. Like the fact that
Yeah,
like so many other people have done it, he's like, is it that special? Like is what I think is like what are the real true gifts of life? And I think that's what this film asks and answers. It's like is it the fact that you get a million flyer miles and you get to travel the world? Like traveling is great, but it's like, are you traveling the world or are you just getting from one place to another? Like, are you really
yeah,
traveling or are you just going? Like, I think there's a difference
yeah,
between flying and like, actually being present and like experiencing the places you're going. He's just merely doing it as his job. And
yeah,
he thinks he's like all that, and then he realizes that everyone else is taking pictures around the world. Like he's just a few pictures on the giant poster board, and he's that's kind of the moment where it clicks for him, where he's like, "No, what am I doing?" And I love those movie moments where it's like this epiphany goes off, and it's kind of cheesy to an extent, but it's kind of also endearing. It's like, no, like that's true. Like a lot of people have that moment. It's like that midlife
yeah,
crisis of like, what am I doing? You know?
yeah.
Um, and I
And
like that moment here.
And it's also, yeah, it's that everything you just said, but then also, yeah, like the fact that he sees that he's able to do the things that they can't do because, they don't have the means to travel the world like he
Hmm
can, or, go wherever he needs to or wants with his miles. But then he realizes maybe he'd rather not be able to go anywhere he wants, but would rather just have what they have, like,
hmm
a bond,
Right.
someone to share the experiences with.
hmm Yeah.
And then I also love, we still haven't talked about the actual firing part, like the actual
Right.
job that he
Yeah.
has, and you get to see that you have Anna Kendrick, who she comes in with like this whole young, like, I'm gonna revolutionize the way you fire people. and stuff. And she's like, I'm going to make it into this whole video thing, and it's going to be automated. And, people are going to be able to push buttons and, just fire people really efficiently, and, tell them that, it's not the end for them, that they can actually use it to their advantage to do something better and stuff like that. And they actually try to have these pep talks with people who are getting fired. And then they realize that she realized this cold approach of automating people's misery is not the way to go. And it's, I don't know, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I love that idea of using the different youth and adult stuff. It reminds me of an education, the fact that you're using two different perspectives to emphasize a point. But here it's not romantic. It's just different viewpoints on different things in life. And I like how it ends. I was almost like, wait, why is he going back to his plane stuff? Isn't his whole thing that he wants to settle down now? But it's the idea of now he's going up in the air, but he doesn't have a destination. He's just going to kind of enjoy the ride and not make it strictly about money or about class or about it. It's just going for the sake of adventure now, and wanting to actually live a life and not just do a life, I guess makes I don't know the right way to say it, but I do like that full circle moment at the end. But I do like Anna Kendrick's character and how she even kind of grows, even though she's a big part of his growth. It ultimately is his story, but she has a lot of her own growth to do, which I like, and she's great in it. I think she's amazing. This is her kind of big breakout movie, and she's great. And she's still a staple. She's still great in everything she does, I think.
Agree. I love her in this 50-50. There's so many movies that she's in that I just adore. Pitch Perfect. She's so good. She's such a great singer. But yeah, in this movie, I just love the whole young versus old type of thing. And she comes in as the young hot shot. And then he's like, okay, hotshot, fire me. And then she tries, and he's like, not so easy, huh? You can't even automate this. This is an art, okay, kid?
Yeah, and just seeing George Clooney do the firing and talk through it, he can make anything cool. That guy just has natural charisma, and that's what's interesting. Is he's there's a whole old versus young mentality, but he's not that old. He's just George Clooney. He just is more.
He's a lot older than her, at least.
A lot older than her, but I mean, I think the thing is he is old, but he kind of he always has a youthfulness to him and a charisma to him, and I just love his just the way he carries himself in this movie. It's he's the perfect balance of a total dick and really endearing and likable and charismatic. It's you kind of have to be both, because in the business, you can't have emotion when you're firing someone, and that's the whole point. But also but what is there to life if you live an emotionless job, and what does that mean too?
Because he only was his job. He, even when he returned home, his apartment was bare. There's nothing there, no personality there. It was just a place to stay while he was there. And it's when you don't have roots or something to hold on to or something keeping you there, your totem from Inception, that's grounding you, you just exist to, I guess, do what you do at the job. And but it's a brilliant movie.
Really good.
I'm trying to think of other things. There's just so many little characters too, Zach Galifianakis and J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, they just
and
pop up and
J.K. Simmons is a huge actor, and then it's just he's this little bit part in Up in the Air.
At the time though, this was pre-Whiplash, and this was post Spider-Man, so I guess he was a known presence. But I don't think even Juno was before this. But I don't think he was a big star till Whiplash. And even then, I would still consider him more of he's always a good supporting role. But I think this was just a great showcase, because he doesn't have to be in more than the 30 seconds he's in, or not 30 seconds, but 2 minutes, and his scene is so good. Honestly,
it is.
If we're going to the traditional route of what a supporting actor is, I would have nominated him for this movie. He's not in a lot of it, but he does support the movie well. His one scene, it's emotional, it's crushing, and you get those devastating moments where you find out the one girl did kill herself. She wasn't joking when she said she was going to jump off a bridge, and it's that's heavy. What if your job is I could never imagine my job being to hurt people and ruin people's lives.
Yeah, it's Like they even say, I believe at one point where they're like, yeah, our job exists because these companies are too spineless to actually like do their own firing. And like, that's true. We're living in a time where they just don't like that. Will just let go. Like, so many people like Twitter did it, like so many companies are just mass firing people and they just do not give a shit about you. And, that's kind of like what happened. That's why their job exists. And it sucks. And like you said, like he's got to be that jerk, motionless to fire people. But then, yeah, I also really love the people in the movie who are playing the fired people, where they're just kind of like sitting there saying like, you realize what you're doing right now. You're destroying my life. Right. And then even though I do like how they're like, well, no, like even Anna Kendrick, like he's trying to save it. She's like, no, this is the start of a new journey for you. And it's like, this is not a happy moment. Stop trying to make it.
That's like in my acting classes when I was younger, when people would be like, Samuel L. Jackson didn't start acting till his 40s. And I'm like, but I'm 20. Like, I don't want to wait 20 more years. Yeah. I get the whole idea of like, you're never too young to start something. You're never too old to start something. And like, that's a good mentality, but also like hearing someone say like, oh, someone in your field didn't get successful for 20 more years. I'm like, that's not necessarily encouraging. It's encouraging to know that I'll still always have the opportunity to try, but it's like, I don't want to be stuck in a rut for 20 years. And maybe I will be. Maybe we'll be doing the show in 2040, whatever, 2042. And I'll be like, I finally hit my break.
Like one of those things, like it's so like, it's just so hard to get a job these days. And it's just so like, if you're an older person, it is nearly impossible for you to just switch your career path. Like people only want to hire young people. They don't want to hire older people who don't know the skills, don't know the new technology or the new way of doing things, or can't teach an old dog new tricks. And it's just a sad world when like an older person like will lose a job like that could actually give them benefits and stuff like that. So it's a very serious thing, and it makes sense why I do not condone condone is bad, right? I do not support this at all, like suicide or anything. If you have any of those feelings, seek help. But like, you can understand why somebody would just like, I'm gonna go kill myself
because it's their life. And it's their life support is taken away, basically.
Exactly.
And I said it earlier, like this almost feels like a period piece just because the way airports work is so different. But at the same time, this also feels ahead of its time because nowadays it is all through a computer. Like I'm sure COVID, like that's what it was. So this was almost like kind of foreshadowing that we might be going down this bad path, and we are almost in a way. Like we are not doing the show live, but it's also because we live so far away. But it's like, people, their whole lives are on their computers and on their screens and all that. Like like hitting 1 million flyer miles is uncanny nowadays. And I don't know how many flyer miles I'm at, but I'm nowhere close.
I'd love to be able to fly like him, though.
I would get
go in with that card, sit in the nice club or whatever you're in. I don't know.
I have been in one of the United clubs, and it's a nice time. It's the coffee and the cheese and the charcuterie. I'm like, oh yeah, like give me some like oyster crackers all day.
I just want to be able to fly first class one time, and then I'll be fine. Yeah, like a long first class to like Europe or something.
So George Clooney, when you watch this episode of Picture This, let us know if we can hitch a ride next time, or Jason Reitman, whoever can get us a ticket, even if it's Michael Stuhlbarg. We liked your performance too. If you can do it for us, and any of the actors that we've talked about in this episode, like let us know if we can fly with you. Anyway, yeah, really good film. Really, just it's a story that you don't really think needs to be told. Like who would ever think to make a movie about people who fly around in planes and fire people? But like, it works, and that's what makes it so unique. Is it is such a unique story. Up in the Air, nominated for 6 awards, doesn't win any. Goes 0 for 6. It gets nominated for Best Picture, Best Director for Jason Reitman, Best Actor for George Clooney. It gets 2 Supporting Actress nominations, 1 for Vera Farmiga and 1 for Anna Kendrick. And it also gets nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. Boom. So those are our 10 movies. We didn't quite hit 3 hours, but hey, maybe we'll spend 30 minutes talking about Chad's Best Actress pick. Who knows? Chad, it is now time to do the impossible and rank these. It is a very hard task with this group of movies specifically. I've got I think it's very top heavy. Like my top 5 are like really hard to decipher. But then like the rest, it's like pretty easy for me. But this is tough.
I'm only just trying to figure out what my top two are going to be. Like they're in the same place, but I'm trying to figure out which one's one, which one's two.
Gotcha.
So,
All right. Well, Chad, why don't you kick us off with your number 10 then? Because it seems like you got the bottom figured out.
my number 10 is probably your number 10, The Blind Side.
That is also my number 10 as well. Blindside abbreviated is BS. So the BS is my number 10 as well. Just kidding. No hate to you, Sandy B. What is your number 9, Chad?
My number 9 is An Education.
We are simpatico, my friend. My number 9 is also An Education. What is your number 8?
We're not simpatico anymore. Javatar is my number 8.
All right. Yep. We are definitely not. My number 8 is Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire. What is your number 7?
District 9.
All right. My number 7 is the Best Picture winner, The Hurt Locker.
Okay. Number 6 is The Hurt Locker.
All right. So not too far off. And honestly, why don't we just swap it? Because my number 6 is District 9. So what is your number 5, Chad?
A Serious Man.
My number 5 is also A Serious Man. We're in an interesting predicament here. What is your number 4?
Not your number 4. It's Up.
Okay, my number 4 is also Up in the Air.
Okay. All right.
So what is your number 3?
Number 3 is Precious.
All right. And my number 3, this is interesting because your number 8 is my number 3 because my number 3 is Avatar. Okay. So what is your number 2?
Yeah, I'm going to do it. Inglourious Basterds.
Wow. Okay, my number 2 is also Inglourious Basterds, which means your number 1 is
Up in the Air.
And my number 1 is Up. No, in the air. Just Up. So this is one of the most interesting episodes ever because get this. Our 10s and 9s are the same.
Yes.
Our 8s and 3s are the same.
Reversed.
Yep. Our 5s and 6s are the same reversed. Our 2s and our 4s are the same. Our 2s and our 5s are the same. And then our 1s and our 4s are reversed. Like this has never happened before.
This is
we
crazy.
are tied. We are tied completely, but in different positions. So here's what's got to happen. Up is my number 1, your number 4. Up in the Air is your number 1, my number 4. So that equals 5. Whereas Inglourious Basterds is both our 2. So I'm going to leave it to you. Do you want... Inglourious Basterds technically does placed highest between us. Do we declare that our winner, or do we coin flip between our number 1s and 4s?
I thought you might have ranked Inglourious Basterds high. Wait, that was your 2 or your...
Yes, we both had it. Inglourious Basterds at number 2. Yeah.
I know you love Up, but for some reason I thought you were going to put Inglourious Basterds number 1. So I was fully prepared to say I want Up in the Air to be my number 1 personally, but I am fine with Inglourious Basterds being our number 1.
So here's the deal. I think because it's both of our number 2, like I think instead of saying, because Up in the Air is still really, really great for me, but it's my number 4, and Up is still really great for you, but it's your number 4.
Yes.
I think for our show, I think it makes more sense for both our number runner-up, since it's the same, to be our winner. Correct?
Yes, I love Inglourious Basterds all the way.
Inglourious Basterds is our number 1 collectively, but I mean the way that's shaped out, like it's literally like perfectly flip-flopped. I can't believe it. Our 10s,
so cool.
Our 9s, our 2s are the same. Our 1s and 4s are swapped. Our 3s and 8s are swapped. Our 5s and 6s are swapped. Like that has never happened so well. Like it's gonna look beautiful on the graphic that I post to Facebook afterwards to be like, what would you rank these? So now we got to get into the acting, which is gonna be tough because this is especially for actor for me. It was. There's an easy answer for me because I'm first for actor. There's a very easy answer for me, but I do have so many good honorable mentions. But I'm gonna go with my favorite performance, maybe of all time, next to Heath Ledger in The Joker, and that is Christoph Waltz for Inglourious Basterds. I just think it's a pitch perfect performance. It's got the charisma with the terrifying fear. The opening scene's great, but for me, it's the wait for the cream, that scene. Is so good when he like tells her, he's like, I have one more thing to ask, and then he just forgets. But is he forgetting? We don't know. We'll never know. He says he forgot, but there's something in his face that makes me think he knew exactly what he was going to ask her, but he said, you know what? I'll let it slide. And it's just like, oh, it's so good.
Mais maintenant, sur ma vie, impossible de m'en souvenir.
He's incredible.
Just him being his like having his like deliciously like villainous, like charming, conniving, like what guy, and just the way that I was gonna pick him if you didn't. That's why I'm talking about him. But just like him talking so, just like nonchalantly about why he views Jews in the way that that man would probably view a rat coming in. It's a nuisance. It's something to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the way he describes it as not evil. It's just that's just how it is. Right. Going from that to when he actually attacks that woman in such anger, it's so much range. I love it.
Yeah. Who is your pick for best actor?
Okay, I'm between a few.
Okay.
I was between Clooney.
Okay.
Jeremy Renner. And Michael Stuhlbarg.
Okay.
What I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to give it to Michael Stuhlbarg.
Ooh, see, that would have been my backup, so I'm very happy you picked that. Wow. Okay, cool.
The reason being is because I think Jeremy Renner makes his movie, and I love him in that movie. And George Clooney, obviously, I mean, I put that as my number one. I love him in that movie, but I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, I mean, it's the title, A Serious Man. It's Michael Stuhlbarg. I love his whole, questioning. Even though I didn't love the movie to start, I really enjoyed it a lot more the second time. Mm-hmm. Just his performance in that, just like his life crashing down, him questioning the whole time, just like goes to like him crying and just like, why can't things be better for him? I don't know. It's just like, there's so many like just great like moments with him, and just the whole movie is just him.
I didn't ask for Santana Abraxas. I didn't listen to Santana Abraxas. I didn't do anything.
I don't know. It's just a great performance for me. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
yeah, I love that you did that, because George Clooney, I believe won in 2011 for The Descendants for us. I would have to double check, but for one of us, I believe it was me. So it's cool that we just get more representation. I'm going to check right now. 2011. Yep. George Clooney and Brad Pitt. So George Clooney already has one. Now Stuhlbarg has one as well. And Christoph Waltz has one because he didn't win for Django. We gave our Django ones to Daniel Day-Lewis and Leonardo DiCaprio. So, or our 2012 ones. Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis was not in Django, but you know what I mean. So Chad, who is going to be your best actress? Also a tough category to figure out.
It is a very tough category, and I thought about this a lot. I'm not going to I don't want to name drop yours.
I don't think you have mine. I think
I don't think I have yours either. I have a guess of what it might be, and I'm excited to find out. But mine is going to be, and I thought this was going to be kind of more of a surprise, but not really, because apparently she was like favorited a lot. Monique.
Oh, yes. Yeah, very great performance. Yeah.
Yeah. If it was just the rest of them, like the first whatever of the movie, I wouldn't have given it to Monique necessarily, even though she's great in the entire film. But it was that last scene where you could just feel her so like psychologically damaged. She's explaining her reasoning for why she is the way she is, and it's wrong, but in her mind it makes complete sense. Mm-hmm. And you can feel her believing it, and that's just great acting to me. Just her sitting there crying about it, but like totally righteous in her reasoning, and she's like, I can feel you judging me, and there's stuff like that. It's just like, I don't know.
So those things that she told you I did to her, who else was gonna love me?
And just the fact that like it's like this performance, and then like I don't know what else really she's been in other than I think shows and comedy specials and stuff. And I don't know, it's just she's so great in it. I love her in that movie.
Yeah.
And hate her too.
So I really don't know if you know which one I'm picking. I like sometimes to pick an oddball choice. I
Okay.
like to sometimes go for one that's like maybe not on anyone's radar, but I gotta do it. I'm going the Andy Serkis route. I'm going mocap, baby. I'm going Zoe Saldana
That's what I
for
thought you were gonna do.
Avatar. Okay, so I'm a little predictable. But the way she's able to do, like, there's something about when a character cries. I mean, my backup was Melanie Laurent, so like
Okay.
obviously the cry gets to me. Her cry in Inglourious Basterds, but also Zoe Saldana when she's weeping and crying, and you can kind of hear the pain coming out of her voice. Like that to me is like, it's devastating, and she's so good.
I trusted you.
Trust me now, please.
Just embodies this character. Never once am I like, oh, I'm watching Zoe, and it's because like, yes, they transform her well, but like at the same time, it's like she still has to do a lot of heavy lifting, like in making herself totally transform in that role, and I think she does. Like I'm never once like, oh, it's Zoe Saldana. It's like, no, I'm watching Neytiri.
Yeah.
I'm watching this whole other being, and I think she's just exceptional, and she's got great chops in acting too, in action too. Like the way she does all the action beats is so good. She's in the 2 highest grossing films of all time, Endgame and Avatar, and if Avatar 2 does well, she'll be in the top 3. So pretty awesome. She just needs to do a Star Wars. She'll be set. No, she's already set. But that is it. Chad, really quickly before I recap, do you want to give any honorable mentions on who you were teetering between for actress, since you didn't bring them up?
Oh yes, actually, let me pull up the thing.
Yeah, I thought of Melanie Laurent, and I also thought about Anna Kendrick. Yeah,
Anna Kendrick was definitely up there for me. Gabourey Sidibe was also one that I was thinking about, and then I went Monique. I was never once, unfortunately, thinking about Sandy B. I did think about Zoe Saldana because I agree she is so fantastic. Melanie Laurent did cross my mind, and that's about it. I think we were like kind of like both, playing with the same ideas of which actresses to do.
By the way, we have passed Avatar's runtime. We are now 2 minutes over the Avatar runtime of 2 hours and 42 minutes. We're not going to hit the Way of Water runtime, though, because we're not going more than 3 hours here. But to recap, my best actor is Christoph Waltz for Inglourious Basterds. Chad's is Michael Stuhlbarg for A Serious Man. My best actress is Zoe Saldana in Avatar, and his best actress is Monique for Precious, based on the novel Pushed by Sapphire. And our number one, our best picture combined, which is both our runners-up, a very worthy choice. Almost made my number one, almost made his, but it is our collective. It is Inglourious Basterds, the second Tarantino film to win the Best Picture prize for our show. I believe that is only the second time a director has taken home 2 Best Pictures. I believe the only other time was Peter Jackson for obviously Fellowship and Return of the King. I believe. I would have to check. I believe that is the second time that has happened. But we are moving on to a new month, and we're going way back. We're going back to 1946, baby, because it is going to be the holiday season, and we wanted to ring in the bells and give some angels some wings by celebrating a beloved classic that came out in 1946. But before we get to that, I got to tell you the other movies that are in the slate. So the year 1946, the 19th Academy Awards, we'll be covering the following movies. The Best Picture winner of the year, The Best Years of Our Lives. Was 1946 the best years of your lives? Let us know in the comments. We're also covering the Laurence Olivier Shakespearean adaptation, Henry V. We are talking about the alluded to film It's a Wonderful Life by Frank Capra. We are talking about The Razor's Edge, and we're closing it out with The Yearling. So we're going to be talking about some deer. That is going to be a fun slate. I've only seen 2 of those movies, but I've heard of 4 of them. I've obviously read the play, Henry V, never seen this version. Razor's Edge, I could not tell you what it's about, but I'm excited to see and excited to find out. Chad, heading into 1946, are you excited to get your holiday cheer on? How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I already know that I love It's a Wonderful Life. I'm interested to see those other ones because I know almost nothing about the other movies. I know that Henry V is Shakespeare, right? But
Yeah,
that's all I know about it. So I don't know,
Olivier's film version of Shakespeare play. I believe he doesn't change it or anything. It's it is what. Yeah.
So I don't know anything about these other movies. So I'm interested to check all these blind spots out, and that's kind of why we did the show. So to
Right, to
fill all those gaps
to
and
get a sense of not necessarily what the best movies of all time are, because some of these films have aged poorly, or the best films sometimes get snubbed. I mean, like The Shining didn't open to good reviews, you know what I mean? But it's to give a good idea of what was at least being talked about at the time, what were considered by the Academy to be the best pictures of the time. And so this will be fun to see where we fall on these ones, because we're going way back. We're going decades and decades back. But Chad, any last thoughts on 2009? Any thoughts on 46? And where can they find you?
Really good year for Oscars. I think 2009. We liked a lot of these movies. A lot of movies. It's good. It's going to be good to go to 1946, where there were less movies, so less time spent watching a lot of movies. Sometimes you need to have that break after doing such a long one. And it's a classic Christmas film we're covering with a lot of other ones, and I'm excited to see how they go against each other, because I know where my bias sways.
Honestly, though, sometimes you expect one thing, and then you get in the bedroom that says, "Is Lord of the Rings really the best of that year?" And then I'm like, maybe I'm rethinking my whole life. So you never know. Maybe the yearling will make you head over heels.
Blow my
little
mind.
baby of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of like gems that came like Ordinary People, like I really liked stuff like that that come up that I'm like, oh wow, I'm so glad we're doing this show because I finally saw the movie. And you could find me, I'm not going to go through the whole spiel because I do this every time, but like my channel, Chadwick Webb, we rank stuff. Dylan's on there a lot. My wife's on there. My buddy James, a lot of other people are on there, having a great time. We're coming up. We're about to do, because I know Dylan just on this channel did his whole slate of ranking the Disney eras pretty soon. As soon as I finish watching them, we're going to rank all 61 of the current ones that have been released until the next Disney animated films come out. We're ranked 61 films. It's going to be insane. We're going to do Star Wars soon. We got a lot coming up. We got a lot of rankings we did. We're going to do Tarantino at some point, probably very soon. Also check out my buddy's channel, the Nerd Entertainment Network. We do a show called Welcome to Primetime on there. We talk about horror. We talk about Buffy. We have a really great time over there. It's me, my buddy Hunter, my wife Carrie, and we have a great time talking horror. Other than that,
Chad, I see you. Let me hold her up. My best actress, I see you. You can find me at the Dill Pickle Movie Network here as you're watching it, and you can listen to other shows I do. Frame Rec. Why can I not think of the others? A Marvelous Movie Mondays, Draft Day, all those shows. Recipe for Reality. And you can find me Dylan_Randazzo on Twitter. It still exists, so you can still find me there. Letterboxd, you can find written reviews for these movies and more. And of course, as Chad alluded to, I put out a bunch of Disney rankings. I will have this week, I promise I'll have my live action video up. I had some tech issues when I went home for Thanksgiving, and it set back all my editing and filming for a whole week, including this show, including Frame Rec, which will come out in the next few weeks, and of course including the end of that Disney series and my review for Strange World, which I haven't gotten to put out yet, but that'll all be coming within the next week and a half. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you had a nice Thanksgiving, and hope you have a great winter, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa holiday coming up as we approach 1946, and then starting next year, we're in the swing of things with a new trilogy that we'll be covering, and we will be covering the 2022 Academy Awards when they happen. So stay tuned. We will see y'all, and thanks for watching.